Look, we came, we saw, he died. We came, we saw, he died. Look, we came, we saw, he died. Look, we came, we saw, he died.
It's not a laughing matter. I take it really seriously. Vote for me because I'm a woman. One of my merits is I'm a woman. All these mothers vote for me because I'm a woman. Because I'm a woman. Vote for me because I'm a woman. One of my merits is I'm a woman. All these mothers vote for me because I'm a woman. Because I'm a woman. A woman running to be the first woman president.
I cannot imagine anyone being more of an outsider than the first woman president.
Who can be more of an outsider than a woman president?
Well, I can't think of anything more of an outsider than electing the first woman president.
A woman president of the United States of America. Women. Woman, women, woman, women, 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 woman, woman, women, 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 women,
Well, Brett, I'm doing my very best. I'm not sure if that sound went out into the ether or if it got trapped up in here. And if y'all didn't hear that, it's just a way for us to warm up there.
Well, I heard it.
Turn this right off.
Good evening, everyone.
Good to see you, Britisher. There were some things that happened yesterday and today that it just got me thinking, and I'm just going to jump right into this if you don't mind, sir. I played that last clip for a couple reasons. If y'all didn't hear it, well, I'll work harder on it in the future, man. My producer quit on me. What do you want? So I'm doing my very best. But the whole idea was that there is this thing going on, which we'll get into at the end of the show. But we're going to start it a different way. But the whole idea is this whole idea of, you know, because I'm a woman, and I'm a woman, hear me roar. So it kind of tied in a couple different ways with the, you know, we came, we saw, he died, and then going into that vote for me because I'm a woman. I think credit for that one goes to Paul Joseph Watson, one of your countrymen, Brett. But it's come to my attention, sir, that I have to be extremely careful, Britisher, that I have to question myself to the nth degree. And you'll notice that the doobies get bigger as the subject matter gets deeper. And for me, this is one that I have to do some introspection on this. I have to take a good look at the ogre and see if where I stand, because someone I respect very much the other day said, yeah, it appears to me from where I stand that you're a diehard Trumper. And Britisher, there's nothing more dangerous in my mind. I mean, nothing, not nuclear weapons, nothing on this green earth more dangerous than a mindless dogma, sir. And if that's enough lead in, I'll let you roll. If not, I got something else.
Well, I mean, when it comes to dogma, we live in pretty dogmatic times. The very fact that we are seeing societies pretty much in all democracies getting ever and ever more polarized kind of means they're being dogmatic. Even if one side, well, I mean, in all fairness, both sides convince themselves they're not dogmatic. One, basically, by and large, we would be talking about the left being deeply dogmatic, but convincing itself that it is at heart liberal, thus in favor of free speech, which, of course, at the same time, they wish to ban in favor of their safe spaces and, you know, in order to act against microaggressions and all such nonsense. But then at the same time, we then get effectively a counter movement on the other side, which equally claims to be non-dogmatic, because these people stand merely for free speech and wish to oppose the dogma of the left, but again will then kind of blindly embrace that which they see as the kind of figurehead to stand against said left-wing dogma, which in this case would more than likely be Donald Trump. And they can then see no wrong in this person. And to my mind, it just means that one kind of stands bewildered between two sides that seem to have gone insane, but both of whom kind of convince themselves that they are completely sensible, and that it is that dogma only resides on the other side.
That's what I'm seeing.
I'll let you take off from there.
Well, that's what I see, Brett, because here we go. From what I see right now, and I will classify myself, thank you very much, everybody in the world, I'm not a centrist. I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I believe that the best government would not exist. That's what I believe. So when I say, oh, you know, I enjoy Donald Trump, I voted for Donald Trump, you know what? I'm just going to be transparent now, Britisher. If I lose subscribers for it, well, so be it. If someone that liked me a minute ago don't like me now, so be it. Donald Trump is what the king would call a running dummy. Someone that's functional and is actually successful, but at the base of them, they're unable to control their own self. They can't take a slight, and I believe that there's so many people in the world that take these biffs and baffs from the greater universe, from whatever, from wherever it comes from, and yet they deal with it with dignity, whatever dignity they can muster. And now we have this world leader. We have this man that sits in the Oval Office who's unable to take some talk show hosts and their opinions about him. The dogma, Britisher, is what I'm coming down to. Not only is it coming from both sides, I actually, at this point in my life, see, let's call it the right and the left. Let's just stick with that right now to make it easy. Yeah. I see the dogma on the right so strong right now that base stick man, hey, look, Kyle, I hope you come on the show. I really respect you. You were in the right. It was a melee. But, oh, base stick man's absolutely okay in hitting somebody. Nobody really even, a lot of the people that I see backing him up don't even look into it. But bike lock guy is absolutely an evil person that should spend the rest of his time in prison. The dogma that I see right now, Britisher, without revving, because I'm revving myself up. I had 199.
If I can just,
please.
I would see a clear difference between bike lock man and base stick man. But where I agree with you is that the dogma which put them both in harm's way in the first place, that is kind of the same intensity. Because why would someone go to a place like that? Do you understand what I mean? Why would someone go and seek to do battle with the opposition? Physical battle. And that is, so in that regard, that's where I agree with you. I don't think that the two individual incidents are of the same quality in that regard, and I don't think you meant that. But I would say the fact that they basically stick or a bike lock and make their way to where battle shall commence, that suggests that there is a very strong sense of, perhaps dogma is the wrong word, but kind of almost kind of a political radicalization of some sorts.
A religio-political feeling. Yes. And yeah, you're right. I wasn't trying to say that Kyle was wrong, but nothing like that. All I'm saying is that right now, where I stand, Britisher, the hoorah and the oh yay and he's cool all goes to my beloved hero, Base Stickman. I can't say it any cooler than that. And then all of the, oh, what an evil person. And yes, Britisher, there was a difference, but the dogmatic revving up of rhetoric right now resides on the right. Did you like all those R's?
Oh, very much so. Yes. No. There's also, this is still on the same subject, but this is actually something that will appear in the week that was. Yeah. I know it's a shameless plug again, but you will be familiar with the story surrounding Chris Christie, will you?
Oh yeah, where he was on the beach and said he wasn't getting sun because he had a hat on.
The governor of New Jersey, who basically really came apart because, yes, there is basically a deadlock regarding the budget of New Jersey. Therefore, there's a government shutdown, which meant that they shut down all the beaches. So the public couldn't go to the beach, but lo and behold, it turns out the Governor Chris Christie could. So I think it was a photograph or two taken from a helicopter, wasn't it, that basically ended up in the newspapers of him.
Yeah, or a drone. It was something like that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, of him on a little sun lounge or resorts at the beach, surrounded by emptiness, enjoying
acres of nothing, just his own private little getaway there, his own private little retreat,
enjoying it with his entourage. Not only did that make for terrible pictures in terms of politics, but of course the man has since doubled down. He sees absolutely no reason to apologize for anything and so on. But what this of course has caused is an endless amount of memes, and frankly very, very funny memes. I don't know if you've seen him in black and white sitting next to Burt Lancaster and whoever the lovely lady was, rolling in the surf in a picture taken from Here to Eternity. He's also on his sun lounger on the beach during the D-Day landings. He is to be seen everywhere. He's also at the moon landing, and those memes are very funny. But what is interesting is that those memes are not being posted by the same people who are very keenly posting Trump memes, beating up CNN and things like that, and vice versa. And that is where I kind of detect one only finds funny what seems to be mocking the other side. So one has lost one's sense of humor regarding one's own side.
And that's terrible, man. That is dangerous when you lose yourself, because it's like Captain Copile just said, Britt, if I can interject quickly and let you carry on. He was saying, it depends upon where you stand, right, Britisher? This is the danger of dogma. Depends upon where you stand, he says, Ogre. If you're on the left, then the bike lock guy, he was doing the right thing, right? He was just another base stick man. He was a base bike lock man.
No, because he just lashed out at somebody. Whereas the base stick man, at least basically was being confronted. He was being attacked. So the bike lock man really just pushed through a line of demonstrators and just walloped someone with a bike lock. That is entirely different in nature. But when it comes to the fact that both of them went there looking for trouble, that motivation from the outset, that seems to be the same in my mind.
Well, but Britisher, let's not look at it for a second, if I can entice you. Let's not look at it logically, sir. Let's take ourselves out of our own self right now for a moment. And here we go. Binary Surfer says, Ogre, if I may add something, the left feels they hold the moral high ground almost always. In fact, I would go so far as to say they always say they hold the moral high ground, and that history will bear them out to be correct and all this stuff. The right does not feel they hold the moral high ground. That's where I'm going to stop, though. Binary Surfer and Britisher, if we take ourselves out of ourselves, whether you're right or left, the dogma that's in place, they just got done saying it's okay to punch Richard Spencer. So doesn't that mean, because in fact, you think of Fararka, Malika Fararka, whatever the little Chinese or Oriental lady was that was by all any means necessary.
By all means necessary woman, yes.
Fararka, she was like, because Tucker Carlson came out and said, well, then what do you do if you feel like someone is just trying to recruit, or they're espousing, any kind of sentiment that you feel is against society? Well, of course you would attack them. So these people are saying, Brett, this is the danger of whatever we want to call it. I would use the word dogma because dogma is a mindless following of an ideology. But this is the problem. As much as I agree with you, if I step out of myself now and I'm over there and I'm Antifa, Lord knows I'm not, but whatever. I'm just going to speak as a human, so take it out of context if anybody wants. I'm Antifa now. I'm a really left-wing, I'm a cross-dressing homosexual nutcase. I feel in my heart that Bike Lock Man, and yeah, I can't remember his name because he's unimportant to me other than he's a criminal, is in the right. He should punch a Nazi. The dogma tells me that Richard Spencer should have got hit. It tells me that Moldy Locks could go and say she wanted to get scalps, and then when she gets hit, it's absolutely wrong. This is where I'm coming from right now.
Because
the dangers on both sides.
It is because the other side has been dehumanized. Basically, your side are humans, and to hit your side is therefore cruel. It is inhumane. It is the wrong thing to do. But because you're not willing to effectively ascribe humanity to your opposition, it is therefore a very easy thing to just basically batter them to death. It is basically at the very base of any kind of movement like fascism and whatever, to be able to dehumanize your opposition. And once you start doing that, it becomes, things start taking a very serious turn. I mean, if we talk about dogma and things like that, yes, it exists on the right. But when it comes to this violent radicalization, it clearly at the moment is prevalent. You know, it's more prevalent on the left because
Britisher. We just had an alt-righter on our channel the other day, and I'll go so far as to say this: I was just with the king, and he met this girl at the 4th of July, and she sent him this thing, man. And look, she may see this, and he may see it, so I got to be careful. In fact, I know the king will see it. But I started to read this. Well, Trump rocks, make America great again, America first. And then I read the body of this very long text that this intelligent lady sent in Britisher. There's no difference, mate. Right now, as I sit here, and after yesterday with the lawsuit, I started looking at a lot of things last night when I should have been reading a cool book that I've got. I was getting into this stuff, and I started to realize, Britisher, it's right now. If I was to be honest, the way I feel at this moment could change tomorrow as I read more and think more. The right they're going nuts right now, Britisher. They're going nuts.
I agree. I agree. But what I'm saying is we don't have bands of right-wing people in black cloaks armed with clubs.
No, they come out in Austin like they just did. Base Stickman did a thing. I watched it on Twitter. He went out to Austin and they had this counter protest. No, they weren't wearing masks. You know what they were doing? They had on American flags draped. They were all carrying sticks, had on riot helmets. Some of them had weapons, firearms, which, hey, look, it's all the same to me, mate. They were there with the intention. This is what I believe, Britisher. With the intention of recreating a Kyle Base Stickman moment where they are there. As much as a friend of ours was just there and got ilk thrown at him. So whatever, but they're there knowing these people. And so they're hoping, I can see it. They're hoping
that they are seeking to put themselves in harm's way. They are seeking
so that they can have their own holy retribution.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wholly agree with you on that. I would just say it is more than likely a difference in scale when it comes to how many madmen the right can muster that go out onto the street with clubs.
That's why I'm mentioning it, Britt. With this, the counter protests that just happened, the one in Austin, especially, because that's the one I watched a lot of, it's being met. When they had the Berkeley thing go down, they had I don't know what else to call them, the right wing. I don't want to just call them Trump supporters because I would like to say I'm a Trump supporter. I would never have engaged in that, mate. If you called me, Britt, tomorrow and was like, hey, Ogre, there's some stuff going down. I think it's going to be violent. Would you gear up and come down I would be like, Britisher, I really care about you, but no. And I know you. If I called you and said something, you'd be like, you said there may be violence there, mate? Nah, how about I take a powder for today? And they're going into this more and more and more people.
Yes. And I remember on past streams my saying that one of my main worries regarding Antifa is that there will be a response to it, because that is exactly what happened in 1930s Germany, where you had the communists and the fascists going at it hard in the street. And that is really not something we wish to repeat, because it doesn't really matter which side wins this time. It's just going to end in complete disaster.
You got it.
So
And
frankly,
it seems to me that ramping it up.
If there is kind of the feeling that there should be some gang to oppose something like Antifa, I would sooner have it be the authorities.
Me too.
Who would go in there and crack a few skulls if need be, and basically
that's their job,
and basically just say, we will not have this. Because what is happening, I think, is that people on the right are seeking to fill what they perceive to be a vacuum in dealing with the radical left.
And we do see this holding back of the authorities from enforcing anything on the left. I got to say it. You know it too. They seem like they give them a pass. And I can't agree with you more. I never even thought about that. But Britisher, it would be nice if the riot police that are there when these people are breaking Starbucks up and threatening Milo Yiannopoulos and Professor Peterson and Morris, the bell curve guy, I can never get his daggone name right. We all know who he is. Murray, Dr. Murray. If they would just go in there, mate, give them a little pepper spray and crack a few skulls, as they are right now in Germany with the G20. I was watching some of that stuff, Britt. They won't carry on that way much in Germany because they may or may not agree with the migrant thing, and I don't even want to talk about that. We're talking about this dogma deal and this idea of political sides now whipping up masses of people to come out as Antifa, and you can say, George, so who gives a crap who's funding them? These morons coming out, and then we see this void because nothing's happening. You just made me think deeper. I wish that they'd crack some skulls so I don't have to talk for another 5 minutes.
Well, yes, basically just to kind of in a way show that we don't need any substitute gangs to sort of come out and sort this problem out, that basically the authorities will deal with this and will, if need be, deal with this very sternly, because since these people are violent, one should not be afraid of meeting them with violence. People who are deliberately dressing up, pretty much like ISIS people who are about to behead somebody, who go out with baseball bats. I mean, I am a wishy-washy liberal at heart. You know that more than anyone else does, Olga. But,
you said you're a no, but go ahead, carry on. I don't agree with that, but carry on.
I would say that people like that should not be met with any great deal of sympathy. That effectively it is a challenge to law and order, and that effectively the authorities need to go and prove that they are the toughest gang on the block, and that there cannot be such a challenge, and that other groups need not think that they are entitled to step into the void in order to sort these people out.
Right, because force with force is absolutely correct, Brett. I'd never argue with that, but you're making such a good point here. Force to be met with force from the proper authorities. It is not, and I won't mention any names. I already mentioned one, and y'all know who I'm thinking of right now probably, but it's not certain people on the right's job to go out and whack folks. It is the trained law enforcement professional that is there with a shield, with a radio, with a bat, ready to deal with, that also has the mental ability because of psychological classes that they have. They have counseling. They know what they're doing. They're not you. They're not going to go home and either be beat up and wonder why or have to deal with guilt, because look, people, we're not supposed to be out there pulling out our sticks. We're not supposed to be doing that.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, particularly more than likely when it comes to more left-wing municipalities, one is kind of reluctant to send out riot police to sort these people out, because one doesn't want to be accused of it's once again one of these "I don't want to be accused of" arguments. One doesn't want to be accused of attacking demonstrators, but that is to equate Antifa and their ilk with actual real demonstrators. Now, it doesn't matter what you think of the nonsense that we saw of the Women's March, where they all dressed up as vaginas.
Oh, mercy sake.
It was cringeworthy, but that was actually a proper demonstration. But the moment the moment you turn up with crowbars and baseball bats, and you're hiding your face, and you are deliberately trying to look as menacing as possible, and then you go about smashing things up, and if need be, attacking people, but always people of whom you think that they cannot defend themselves.
Of course.
The moment you're doing that, that has nothing to do with the demonstration anymore. You are just simply enacting mob violence in the street.
I think we're in unison on this, so let's be fair. Even though we're looking at this, you just made some really good points. If you're there, knowing that this paramilitary group, by their own admission, that's what they call themselves, is there, going to do all these things. If you're there, geared up, ready to step in the breach, then you should be calling your congressman. Can we agree on that? Well, you should be calling your local sheriff and saying, hey, I would like to go down here and do this, but I do pay you to go down there and not just to beat them up, Brett. We're not talking about loosing dogs, anybody on, or breaking out the water cans for nothing. But if it comes to it, to crack skulls in our stead. Otherwise, both parties there's no right. There is no good side.
Yeah, the moment that people are taking it into their own hands, there is no right. Because the argument of, oh, well, we are here to protect society from Antifa, no, that doesn't wash with me.
Nor I, sir, because we don't need it. And thanks so much for showing up, Wolfshot. I do believe that Wolfshot's at least knows who the Proud Boys are. So she might be able to speak to this. She may have a different opinion. I don't know, but I know one thing, Wolf, you're going to get to talk today.
All right, cool.
That's your cue, sweetie.
Proud Boys, there is a defense group, a part of the Proud Boys. It's I can't remember what they're called. They're knights of some sort. I don't know. And they don't advocate violence. They when they feel like the crowd's getting too much, when Antifa strikes, they strike back, essentially. I'm sorry, I just woke up, so don't mind me.
No, and that's cool. And I think if you're not done, continue.
So,
but I think
can I just interject here? So basically, they don't advocate violence, but they are there to strike back should Antifa kick off. I'm sorry, but that actually sounds to me like a group that is actually pretty prepared to use violence.
Yeah, and I wanted her to respond to that, because that's what I was thinking, girl. I love the Proud Boys, but if there is a branch of the Proud Boys that are there, then they need to write their congressman. They need to contact their local sheriff. They need to say, hey, you need to be here because we're going to go protest, yes. But if Bike Lock Man emerges from the crowd, if someone pepper sprays Kyle Base Stickman, then we would like you to do your job and to step in and make this wrong right without us, because as soon as you get a stick in your hand, you are an advocate for violence or anything like that. Look, and I'm not beating you up. So Wolfshot, I know you know about this. If you're not here, we'll carry on, but I want to hear what you say about this, and we'll give you all the respect you need, and I think you can take care of yourself anyway, girl.
For me, I believe that you should have the right to defend yourself. And if someone comes at me with a stick and hits me with said stick, then you bet your ass I'm going to go back with a punch as well. So,
but there's a difference between being prepared to protect oneself, and Britisher, you may agree, may not, and everybody may disagree with me, and having a branch of your organization prepared to do that that is not deputized in some way by the state or by the authorities?
Yeah, but I'm always prepared to defend myself.
Yes, but if I may, if you go to a demonstration, so basically, you know, let's say you just go to a demonstration and you're there and you've perhaps got a placard or something like that, then you are a demonstrator. Now, if you are attacked, then to all avail, you of course have got the right to defend yourself. But if instead of going as a demonstrator, you basically go as backup and you're walking alongside the demonstrators with clubs, and then when they are attacked, you then go into a melee, is that the same thing?
Okay, repeat the question. I apologize.
Basically, if
Bullet,
you
bullet
don't...
out for it, Brett. What he's saying is there a difference between going and protesting and defending yourself if need be, and going and protesting with a group that belongs to you that is there to protect you or to bash if something happens? Is that correct, Brett?
Well, as I say, my question is regarding that group that goes along solely as kind of, you know, violent protection. Because to my mind, they are not going there as demonstrators, are they?
I mean, it might start out that way.
All right, and I don't want to press her, Brett. I don't want to put you in no corner, Wolf Shot, because just like anybody else, there was.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, because this.
Well, because I don't want you to listen. I'm not saying you're trying to get out of it, but let me make it very clear, because I'm saying the same thing I believe that the British is. If you go there, even in this country, if you're armed, you have your 9mm on your side, you have your 45 under your arm, you have your permit for said, and then it's a situation like what happened in Washington, and you actually have to shoot someone. Hey, that's their ass. But you went there as a protester. Now, if you then have someone who, even if they go with a sign, Wolf Shot, even if they show up with a sign, but their main idea, because I do believe you said that the Proud Boys have this splinter, this group within a group that is there to quell trouble if trouble shall arise. I mean, you don't think that maybe is a bad idea?
Well, it was based off of what happened to Base Stickman. So it's technically Base Stickman's group. It's strange. I don't know where the Proud Boys sit into this.
So what are the Proud Boys themselves? Because I'm not familiar with this term.
Gavin McGinnis created a group about basically to encourage men to be men and women to be women. It's just another right-wing group. Western chauvinists, West is best policy. Okay,
but they are basically demonstrators.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Nonviolent demonstrators. They go and scrub graffiti off of walls. They go and help the community. They try to tell people, listen, be yourself, but love your country no matter who you are. They encompass. They are so far from any kind of what they try to be. They try to call them alt-right. It's insane. Wolfshot and I yesterday, we were kind of ding-donging with some other people on Twitter. They call them alt-right. It's a joke. There are all kinds of races encompassed in that. But it doesn't take away from this. And this is what this whole stream is about today, at least this first hour. Look, if I go prepared, and for me, prepared Britisher would be Mrs. Ogre carries her sidearm with her everywhere. I don't carry a sidearm. I'm too big and stupid to carry a sidearm. I don't need a firearm. I believe if Wolfshot was here, in fact, she'd probably say the same thing now. Do you think I should carry a sidearm everywhere I go, Wolfshot?
No.
No. And it's because you know me a little bit. You do know me. If you didn't know me, I hope you wouldn't just say that. And I know you wouldn't. So boom, here it is. Here it is right here. If we're all out there ready to defend ourselves, as is not only our right, it's every human being's duty. You should clothe, you should feed, you should house, you should defend yourself. If we're all out there doing that, then why? And man, I didn't really know. I got to look into it deeper because I didn't know that Base Stickman was like, let me just put it out here. Because whether he comes on the show or not, I'm not going to kiss anybody's ass. there is a problem, Wolfshot, to me, in my opinion. When we go away, when one goes away from being there to hold their placard and to say, I'm for Trump, I'm against Trump, you know, hey, hey, ho, ho, fascist stuff has got whatever, to wearing black masks with crowbars and hitting people with bike locks, or even being there to say we're the menacing lot in this group, that if you step out of line, we will now step into the place of law enforcement, and we will, because it's given them a, let me not get off track. We'll step in place of law enforcement and do that duty. Man, that's dangerous.
Because you're basically lining up an opposing battalion. Basically, you are drawing battle lines. You have got people who are pretty much going there to fight. And sooner or later, the more often that happens and the more people do that, the more inevitable the fight becomes.
Why have an army if you're not going to use it, right?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm always ready to fight.
And that makes my point, Wolfshot. And from what I know of you, I hope to God, girl, wherever you go, that you have, I hope that you can just pull a 45 out and it's locked and cocked and all you got to do is drop the safety. Because you strike me as the kind of person, if that thing came out, the person on the other end of it was, they got some bullets coming their way, and they should have. But that's you, that's personal. When we start to make, and believe me, let me preface it this way, even if I suck a little air out of the room with it, I am in no way condoning Antifa or any of these lefty movements. They come out and do the same thing. I just see right now that force is being met with force in an inappropriate way. The Proud Boys need to keep going out there and scrubbing off the side of the buildings, keeping them out there. Look at Martin Luther King. Look at the real leaders of the anti-Jim Crow legislation and all that. Dogs were biting them. They didn't even hit the dogs. And history looks back at them right now and says, how on earth could you not call these people anything but crusaders for the correct way to be and live? And as soon as we have factions, as soon as we have something built in to any side that is there to extra judiciously, extra governmentarily, extra everything except for their own authority, now bring retribution to someone that is doing something physically wrong. Man, we are going, Britishers said it so well. Why have an army? As the longer you draw lines and now you are trying to come and combat this very bad thing in the form of Antifa, eventually it's not just going to be Kyle there having to whack one per. Eventually it's going to be a bloody melee that looks like Waterloo. I did it. I sucked all the air out. And I don't want to shut anybody down. I just want opinions on this. And Wolfshot, you are in the best position right now to give me good opinions on, I think, the side for why on earth aren't people writing letters and saying, Mr. Sheriff, Mr. Congressman, we see this problem. And now we're thinking about having people there to protect us. Why aren't you sending people here to protect us?
That's the problem. They're not. They've got too much. They're too preoccupied with their reelection to give a shit. Or what Antifa is doing is what they want them to be doing. Essentially, this goes back to like Gangs of New York. I don't know if you've ever read the book or seen the movie. You hire one side of the poor to kill the other side of the poor. That's essentially what's happening. So
that's what's happening. They don't even have to hire it. They're just doing it.
Well, it's just the expression. You take up arms, you kill both sides, and then the politicians come in and pick the bones clean of whatever's left, like vultures.
But as I say, we have got stark warnings from history regarding that. And we don't, you don't just need to, go back to 1930s Germany, which is the example that's always quoted. But you can go to the end of the Roman Republic. This is exactly what happened. The moment you start having violence on the street by organized groups who wish to express their political views with fists, pretty much your political discourse breaks down. So this is just all round a bad idea.
And if you can be this open with us, Wolfshot, or not, I don't know if you want to share this, how you feel about it. Do you feel like the factions on the side that I would most support, the right now, do you feel like something inside of them is there because they want this action? You see what I mean? Because they want to be the ones that club down Antifa in place of the proper authorities?
No, they don't want it. I don't want it.
Important.
I mean, I know they don't want it. I absolutely know they don't want it. But they want to be able to defend themselves.
And I'll keep poking and prodding, because to me,
That's fine.
I can't.
Go for
I can't. Well, to you and Britisher too, because I can't see. In my mind, I'll say it again. I have a lot of friends. I just came from a dear old friend of mine who would walk to the gates of hell with me. But if I called him up right now and said, "Hey, King, I got a problem with these guys, and I'm going to go over here. I think there might be trouble. Think you might want to get your 38 police special, put it in your pocket, and come with me," he would go, "Ogre, I've known you for a long time. If there's, no, why don't you call the authorities? Why don't we go up to the cop shop, give our side of it, and I'll support you in that. I'll help you write a letter, and we'll get the right people involved in this." That's just wisdom. As soon as we go to, okay, we need this, because I'll say it again, Kyle, he's vindicated in my mind. He did the right thing at the right time. But Base Stick Man, all respect, I want you on the show. I would talk to you about this. If you are out there right now actively saying, now I'm going with this group because I've proved my battle hardness. I proved I can knock a kid out that's there attacking me. I mean, everybody's seen the videos. He's a tough guy. If you get up in his face and try to hurt him, you better be prepared. If you say, now I'm going to lend this warrior skill that I have without being deputized, by anyone but the group, man, it is leading us into a path that is, we got to wake up to this.
Well, I posted in the side chat, in this chat, not out there. Well, I did post out there as well. The Fraternal Order of Alt Knights is what they're called. They're a splinter group from the Proud Boys, which is led by Kyle Chapman, or Base Stick Man.
That's right here. And I'm not going to speak against anything right now.
No,
in fact, I guess I already have. I'm just saying that when I see this girl, this that I'm reading, this shockwaves were sent through the Proud Boys universe yesterday as Kyle Chapman, Better Knows Base Stick. As I see these things organizing, it doesn't make me feel good.
Would we be fair in calling this a paramilitary organization?
No.
They're calling
An
themselves
official military arm of the Proud Boys. That's what I'm looking at here, right in front of me. Base Stickman organizes official military arm of the Proud Boys. Official military arm, and you're not calling that a paramilitary organization?
I stand corrected.
Yeah, and it would good. Thank you, Wolfshot, because it just, and it's not your call. You didn't organize this, but yes, they're actually calling themselves paramilitary by definition.
But what I mean is, Northern Ireland has a very dubious history of groups that are paramilitary organizations. This is not necessarily a place you want to go. And again, in Northern Ireland would be a wonderful example here, because I don't know how familiar you are with the Orange Marches.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, these are the Protestant marches that basically are held by the Orange Order. They go back to commemorate the Battle of the Boyne in the 17th century. But do you think when they held those Orange Marches that there was not always some Protestant paramilitaries about, just in case there was some violence? And is that not exactly the same thing? This is the problem, that basically people are effectively setting up their own quasi-law enforcement.
Yeah. And that was the whole point I was making, because believe me, the reason I'm pounding hard on this thing is because Base Stick Man's one of my heroes. Everybody that knows me knows that's a fact. I have right here at I won't whip it out, just show it again, but I have a stick that the King made for him, that if I can ever deliver it to him, I hope he don't use it, but it is for him to hang on his wall. He's one of my heroes. Gavin McGinnis, Britisher, you know full well, he's one of 3 reasons I am doing this today. Because
He's
I
the
look up to
gentleman
the
you always
man.
refer to as a puff, isn't it?
Watch it, sir. Watch it. You know, you're lucky you're a co-host. I would kick anybody else out of here for that, but I don't think I can kick you out. You have the trump card here. But no, not a puff. He's actually quite a guy.
Sorry, I just had to. It was a must.
But what? Yeah, I appreciate that. But Britisher, what kind of guy would I be if I saw something going awry with people that I look up to and respect, and I stood there complacent and was like, oh no, this isn't anything like Antifa. No, this isn't anything like the Orange marches where they had, no, this isn't anything like any of this stuff. This is okay because it's, and I'm, you know, no one here is doing that except it's not okay because it's my side. To me, it's less okay. We need to meet force with force. If it's the Bobbies cracking skulls, but if it's us cracking skulls, we are now losing the moral high ground.
Can I ask this of the two of you? Have the two of you had the feeling that the political right, and also if you just watch YouTube, if you sort of catch the scent in the air, if you know what I mean, have you got the impression that things have been going more toward the right? That basically political commentators who were saying things that were perhaps you know, right of center are beginning to drift more rightward.
It seems to be.
Yeah.
That's why I'm bringing it up right now.
Makes money.
Yes, but what I mean is it's almost like a sort of a self-perpetuating cycle that one sort of gradually drifts more and more and more to the extreme, and the two sides are becoming ever and ever more polarized. And that there are fewer and fewer voices sort of standing in the middle saying, gents, do you really think this is the right thing to do? Because
yeah, especially on the sides, Britt, not only it's polarizing, yes, sir, but especially on the sides, less and less people on each side. And now on my beloved logical side, I would say that I support right now, the right side is not standing up for the things that are going awry at the moment. Sorry, Britt.
Yeah, but also, you know, basically there has to be a kind of schoolmasterly attitude almost in the center of basically saying, look, folks, this is not where we ought to be going. And that's not necessarily always the popular position to take. The popular position may, in fact, always be to just, you know, put up another clip deriding Antifa, saying, you know, how good an idea it would be to go and, you know, batter them, rather than basically someone sitting in the middle saying, is this a wise idea? Is this really the way you want society to go? Or are you just becoming ever and ever more tribal, ever and ever more wrapped up in your side, determined basically to defeat the other side or oppose it with your dying breath? But like that, civil society becomes ever less civil. That's all I can really say. Because civil society kind of depends on people playing voluntarily, not through coercion, but voluntarily by those rules. If everybody has to be forced to do it, it doesn't work, because there are just not enough policemen in the world. So there needs to be yeah, go on. Sorry.
No. Finish your idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give Wolfshot as much time as she needs to help me understand, at least from her side of the coin, what's going on, and if she even sees what we're talking about right now. If she even sees that it seems to be support is shifting now to the right, the moral, that ambiguous, whatever the hell that is.
Well, as I say, if I can just sort of specify there, I am not arguing from the position of support is shifting to the right, because you know, to my mind, that would actually be a good thing at the moment politically. But that's not it. My worry is more that those who are on the right, those who are already there, are shifting yet further right. That one is becoming more and more militant. And as far as the left are concerned, I mean, you know, so many of them by now are already in militant cloud cuckoo land. that it's you know, it's kind of hard to even quantify whether they're getting worse. But on the right, things definitely seem to be they seem to be mirroring what the left has already done before them.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
we were very fortunate because Wolfshot is an ex-law enforcement officer. So maybe, I mean, maybe we don't get it, Britisher, because I do believe the cops should be out there cracking skulls when they need to, forming a line, making sure everybody's safe. But maybe Wolf, help us understand this if you can.
So what am I? So
I'm here. We either flabbergasted her or she lost her microphone.
I think she might have lost her microphone because she just went sort of mid-sentence there.
Yeah, and I know, Brett, that she will have a good apologia for where she stands. And maybe we're not seeing that there does need to be this militant arm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I don't necessarily agree with having the alt knights or whatever. I'm just I smile in the face of adversity. And what I mean by that is I've been to plenty of anti-Sharia law marches or plenty of Trump marches in general where Antifa was present and they're yelling and they're screaming in my face and they're shoving and you just smile. You don't do anything. You don't do anything to egg them on. You just smile in the face of adversity. Do I agree with them forming a kind of paramilitary arm? I mean, not necessarily. However, it's not my fucking group. I mean, it's... How do I put this? Essentially, they have the right to defend themselves, and if they see someone getting the shit kicked out of them or someone getting the shit kicked out of them by someone else, then, I mean, I've done it before. I've seen it where someone was getting the shit kicked out of them and I helped out. And as far as law enforcement's concerned, when I was working, we were stretched thin as it was. Now I can't even imagine, especially with all this Black Lives Matter, fucking don't shoot me bullshit happening. Police don't want to touch people now. Police do not want to touch people. They don't. They just don't.
You can't blame them because they get sued or get imprisoned half the time.
Oh yeah, they get sued or or it's the court of public opinion. They get absolutely bombarded by these assholes who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
But if I saw it as an equal thing, and you can't answer for this, but you have some insight. If I saw it as an equal thing where they weren't defending Antifa and they weren't, I have seen so many clips of these lefties doing crazy stuff. This kid sprayed this guy standing there. I think it was a street preacher, but it's Antifa kid. He was 15. They did not arrest him. They said they couldn't arrest him. Are you kidding? Because he's 15? 15-year-old kids get arrested all the time.
Yeah, they do.
And they said, well, they didn't see it. There was a group of people. It was on camera. And so
they all got body cams.
I see this leaning away from protecting one side and not the other. I still don't see a justification, as you have already said, for the paramilitary. But what can I, as a citizen, what influences your comrades? What influences law enforcement to do the right thing, even if the police chief is saying, hey, give deference to Antifa there?
Smile in the face of adversity. And if someone fucking cracks a stick against you or punches you or whatever, fight back. Seriously. Defend yourself. Because go ahead, Britisher.
What would be preferable?
What?
Basically, to fight back, and because if we're just talking the here and now, and you're being attacked, you fight back.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be another demonstration in a week, in a month, in a year. So basically, it means that you would sooner fight back rather than get in another police chief
I think
getting other governors, getting other politicians who are actually willing to spend some money on police, possibly change the rules on the police, and then send them in to effectively knock some heads together on that side.
I think you missed the preface of getting hit first. Don't be the aggressor.
This is what I mean. This only applies to the demonstration you're at now. But if you want it sorted so that in a year's time, you can actually go and hold a demonstration, then surely you would sooner have police intervene in a year's time rather than you to once again have to take matters into your own hand. But that basically means that you will have to shake up what you might be doing in terms of voting and vote some people in who are actually willing to change something.
Yeah, but is that guaranteed? I mean,
Well,
look at the politicians we have now. They ain't doing shit. No one's doing shit, honestly.
Largely because everybody is still relying on, well, I've been a lifelong Republican. My mother was a Republican. My father was a Republican. Their parents were Republicans.
My father is a staunch Republican, and I vote independent.
Yes, but that is largely how the whole concept works. That basically people vote tribally for the Democrats or for the Republicans. And at some point, if you really want some change, something will need to alter there. Because if people are sooner willing to kind of take up arms and go and fight it out at demonstrations, rather than change their voting habits, then perhaps the whole democratic idea is beginning to break down.
It's not my intention when I go to a demonstration to fight.
But
Nor is it any of the Proud Boys that I know. It's not the intention to fight, period.
That's not what I'm saying. But basically, one is going there with, with the increasing expectation that there will be something happening.
How is that put on us, though, when they're the ones throwing the punch? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. But the whole thing is that there should be somebody there to stop this. There should be police there to basically say the police are too thinly spread. Get some more police.
Okay, I'll wave my magic wand.
Well, no, vote for people who are willing, if need be, through higher taxation, to pay for more police.
No one wants higher taxes right now. No one.
So you'll rather fight than have higher taxes?
Hey, man. I mean,
but no, that's what I don't believe. Well, Shot, I don't believe you'd rather either. But the fact of the matter is,
that is effectively what eventually it boils down to.
But in the end, oh man, now I've got to say it. But I'm not. I know Wolfshot is an ex-law enforcement officer. So here's the problem: it's not even so much just taxes. You know it isn't, girl. It's the county, the municipality. It has the money 9 times out of 10 to get more police officers, but they want the fountain in the park.
It's true. No, go ahead. No. Go ahead. It's absolutely true. They don't want to spend the money on police. They want to spend the money on bullshit.
But as I say, then if need be, vote your old knights into office so that they put some.
That'd be great. That would be good to me.
So that they put some, that they put some police on the street who can deal with this. So rather than have alt-knights walking around with clubs, have alt-rights in the municipal townhouse sorting things out that way.
That would be great. And I'll tell you, in my heart, I really believe that if we had more people like Kyle in office, in other words, I believe that Kyle would whack a Proud Boy in the head if they were there beating down some Antifa that were just there calmly saying, hey, we don't like Trump. Not kicking in any doors, not hurting anybody. I really believe that. He seems like the kind of guy who would stand up for the right, for the correct thing, not the right as in right wing.
The correct thing.
Yeah, it's so hard to say the right thing right now, right?
Yeah.
It does go back to this, Britt, that we have where I'm at right now. I just happen to know this because I know some people. They took out the sheriff about 10 years ago because he was getting a budget of $175,000 a year to feed right around 60 guys a month in the jailhouse. They were eating bologna and boiled eggs almost every meal because he only spent about $20,000. The rest of the money, and he's getting his comeuppance. But the same thing happens on different scales. We could have the police officers. It almost goes deeper than this, because right now you can see it. It's not my opinion. Right now, the powers that be are being told, give deference to this group. Get out of their way, because they may have some girls there. They may have some, who knows why. Let me not get into why, but they're telling them, give them deference for whatever reason they may have. And if these people are in trouble, don't even bother helping them. If something happens and it's causing this, now I'll still stand firm and say, I don't think it's right. But we need more honest local government. Our local governments have gotten so corrupt, man.
That kind of points to the fact that the weakness lies within the system itself.
Very much.
To basically sort out the system. And this is what I mean. It seems much more tempting because it is easier to pick up a club and go down to the town square rather than to actually go through the diligence and the hard work and the monotony of sorting out the system. But if you sort out the system and you can put some more police officers on the street, and you can afford to pay them the overtime so they can put some riot gear on and sort out this mess when it arises, then people don't feel tempted to basically take the law into their own hands and go down to the square with a crash helmet on and a baseball bat.
Where was that Britisher that I was, you or Cabbage Patch? I think both of y'all sent me a little article that happened a few years ago where there was some thing going down in Great Britain and the police actually used their horses to charge.
Yes. That was in the 1980s. It was the Great Miners' Strike.
Yeah, and recently a member of Antifa stabbed a police horse in the neck at a protest. Unprovoked, obviously.
That should be assaulting an officer, in my humble opinion.
No, I agree. In the neck.
But Brett, what if you can just say very quickly in that miners' strike, because I looked at a lot of that stuff, some old videos.
But yeah, I remember
the British people are such sissies. They were really nice about it, right? They just rode up on their horse, said, "Please, Mr. Miners, don't cause this big problem and wreck our society and hurt people that are innocent bystanders." That's what they did, or what did they do?
Well, it was a proper battle. What you have to understand is that the union leader Arthur Scargill, he basically tried to bring out all the miners. So there was a national mining strike. Except, of course, some various local unions, particularly in Nottinghamshire, just didn't want to have anything to do with it. They just wanted to continue working. So what happened is that the miners went down to Nottinghamshire and tried to close down those pits. So basically, they kind of almost, blocked the gateways. So, of course, Thatcher, being the kind of person she was, basically realized, that this was going to be a kind of pivotal point, that one side won or the other. So she effectively organized through the Home Office an army of police officers to be sent there. So these two armies clashed at what is colloquially called the Battle of Orgreave. And it really was thousands of miners. And I mean, if you've ever seen a coal miner, I mean, they are not sissies. They are a very tough breed.
Yeah, far from sissies.
Thousands of coal miners against thousands of bobbies. And yes, there was even, there was several cavalry charges by the mounted police.
Yeah, so there's a good example of where we can meet force with force. And I'll just say out there in the chat, be careful when you attack Mad Dog Productions. And I know it's all a joke. I won't even say nothing. I'm watching some of the drama in the chat. Captain Colepile and Mad Dodge Productions are probably two of the gentlemen that if I was to debate them or try to get into a spat with them, I'd come prepared. That's all I'll say. But I love to tie in the British thing with the American thing, because it's always this way, Brett. Well, English cops don't carry guns. They're a bunch of sissies and this and that. Last I seen, there was some Bobby that attacked a Islam with a knife, and he took a cut to the face, and then there was some. I mean, it's very much not the stereotype. Your people do know how to bring law and order. It's not always pretty, but the English way, and I want to see it become more and more the American way, is to meet that ill to society with society's righteous right arm.
Yes.
That could come from the group themselves if they had nothing else to do with it, but they shouldn't be preparing for it.
The coal miners are perhaps not the ideal group to bring up there as an example. The better example in that case would be the football hooligans. Because in the 1980s, we had a massive problem with football hooligans. And we had several really, really bad incidents. And eventually I think it was again Thatcher who basically decided, you know, up with this I will not put. Basically, we need to clamp down. And yes, once again, it was the police, your friendly neighborhood Bobby, who walks the streets unarmed, who basically were brought in en masse and were basically told, if these people kick off, basically beat the crap out of them. And the hooligan problem was solved. And Antifa are little else. They're not much different than football hooligans. But the answer to football hooligans is not for your team's fans to create your own football hooligans so that you can have football hooligan battles. The answer to hooliganism is for the police to be there and meet force with force, and to meet it with irresistible force, and to basically to restore order. And in that regard, order has been restored. The hooligan problem is nothing like it was. I mean, it barely exists compared to back then. So the solution,
they keep running into the blue wall, Brett. They keep running. Well, I think over there it's the black wall of Bobby's, but they keep running into the black wall. Eventually, when you keep running into that wall and they keep having the same stiff upper lip in the same billy club, you go, well, you know what? Let's just go watch the football game. I
mean, even in my town, and my town is a fairly small town, but when a football match is on, and one of the teams arrives whose fans have still got a troublesome reputation from the past, then we have mounted police out. That basically they ship them in from elsewhere, basically. And yes, there are police on horseback, and yeah, they simply they're there as a deterrent to basically say, well, a few years ago you were still a troublesome lot, so we've still got these lot here to knock you on the head, should you even think about it. But of course, that costs money. But you're either prepared to spend that money, or you just have running battles in the street.
Yep. Well, we have to find some way. The only way that, listen, I don't think enough Americans do this. In my lifetime, I've written at least 50, probably upwards of 200 letters to my local representative, my congressman in Washington, D.C. Mark my words, you always get a response. It's always signed by the representative or congressman. It's probably they just signed it, or it's a machine, and it is somebody in their staff doing it. But you'll always get a response. And believe me, if enough people ask, they know it's their constituency. They see the postal code it's coming from. You tell them your name and that I vote for you. And if you want me to vote for you again, you will make it so the Proud Boys don't have to start having a militant arm to protect themselves. You will either protect them as you've protected the insanity that is Antifa and all this leftist lot the same way, or don't come knocking on my door in 2 years when you want your house seat back.
Yes, precisely. But basically, we have to kind of learn. We have to learn, almost relearn, to live within our democratic systems and to use those systems. Because if we basically have people taking up arms to go to demonstrations, then something's foul in the state of Denmark. That basically our system is then beginning to break down.
Yep. Well, something's got to give. And we can get into something funner here in about 10 minutes. Thanks for humoring me, folks. I have done nothing. I have something that I'm very interested in. I was going to do it last night, and I wanted to go into a nice faraway land and enjoy a little bit of fantasy. And instead, oh, we had somebody guest host our channel, and these things came. We had some other guests, and I enjoyed them all. Respect them all. But they made me look into some things. And to be perfectly honest, they gave me a more critical eye. Because I realized that all of the folks on my side are not Wolfchild. Oh, excuse me, not I said Wolfshot. I know a Wolfchild, a man of Wolfchild. Are not Wolfshot. Some of them, I don't know where the hell they're coming from, Britisher. It almost, and then not the people on the stream yesterday, please, not that. But I don't know where they're coming from. Do they want this? Have they been waiting somewhere? The outcast, or maybe even the tough guy that was, who knows what they are? Have they been waiting there for a moment to come forward and then suddenly be the police officer they could never be, or whatever it may be? And now you have these battle lines drawn, man. It's getting crazy in here.
I'm not even sure whether it's necessarily that they haven't had, they're kind of living out the role they wanted to, have, but they didn't get the opportunity to. It may in fact just be that people may find a role in trouble, and that is one of those worrisome things. I mean, it may be why the Brits invented so many sports, because it was one of the best ways of stopping the population killing each other. Because effectively sport, to anyone who hasn't realized it yet, is very much a substitute for warfare.
Absolutely. Well, and it's to prepare you. You were even saying Wellington was like, the cricket fields of today, they breed the soldiers of tomorrow. It helps in combat. You get the camaraderie, you get used to having things thrown at you.
True, but if you also think of the fact of your chief athletes, if you think of your quarterback in American football, the quarterback would more than likely be the equivalent of Hector or Achilles in the ancient world.
Yeah, in Britisher, this is a young lady that follows you. Her name is Butter. Butter Bits, she used to call herself. I think now Butter Cupcakes is her handle on Twitter.
I noticed that there is a dairy subject here.
She has very nice big eyes, I've noticed myself.
Yes.
Beautiful large eyes, round, perfect eyes. And she does like the stream, and thank you so much, Butter. I just wanted to share a picture. She was over there. RPR is flirting with her.
Yes, I'm having to sort of concentrate very hard just to think straight.
Well, let's think about cricket now, mate. So, and here's the wrap up for me, and then I want you to give your final word on this. And I just got some news about Lionel Nation. Maybe we can talk about. And whoever's sending me this information, I think it was Mad Dog's production. Please send me a little link or two over here or in my Twitter somewhere where I can pull it up, and we'll get onto the Lionel Nation thing on the spur of the moment. But I'm sure we can handle it. The British and I can handle about anything you throw at us. But here's my wrap up on this. I will always go back to Martin Luther King in my life, because you have this man that's saying, no, I'll show you how to protest. When you're at Woolworths and they are beating you with a club, how did you put it, Wolfshot? You smile in the face of adversity. Sometimes adversity comes as a rubber club or a high-pressured water hose or an attack dog. If you really believe in, and I know that this sounds so crazy maybe, but if you really believe in what you believe in, yeah, you will defend yourself like any other mammal or animal or insect will when it's cornered and it feels like its life is in jeopardy. You'll defend yourself. You should. But if you really believe in what you believe in, you'll stand up for that thing and smile in the face of whatever adversity comes towards you without making a militant arm of anything. And I'll just leave it at that so I don't go for an hour. And Brett, if you want to say something, then we'll give some respect to our guest here and let her wrap up this idea here.
Well, I guess we would like to think that we live in a civil society. And in a civil society, you press your cause by civil means. And if need be, by civil disobedience. Because you mentioned Martin Luther King, and I guess Martin Luther King, he would have referred to Gandhi And just look at Gandhi. I mean, he effectively took on the entire British Empire. Had he done so with violence, he would have got no respect whatsoever. And frankly, if there had been violence in that regard, if there had been another Indian mutiny, as there had been, I think, in the 1860s or 1870s, all it would have ended up with is the perpetrators being butchered. But he kind of realized that the secret to action within a civil society is entirely civil. The moment you leave that, no matter what your justification may be, you will not be respected. So that's where I'll leave it.
That was excellent, Brett. And then put a cherry on top of this. Wolf shot and take as long as you'd like, young lady.
I mean, you mentioned Martin Luther King, you mentioned Gandhi. What's funny about Martin Luther King is that he actually didn't begin as a pacifist. He had to be taught pacifism by Bayard Rustin. And Bayard Rustin actually met with Gandhi's son to become more pacifist. And before that point, Martin Luther King Jr. owned AK-47s, had AK-47s in his house, etc. So my point is that if someone it all goes back to defending oneself. And you have to, in my opinion, you have to, I guess, go contextually and be like, why is this group forming this defensive arm? Well, because this other group is being a bunch of fucking assholes for no reason. And one must defend oneself. And if the police aren't going to do it, who's going to do it? And if no one's going to spend the money on getting more police, and if the politicians you vote in are restricted by red tape and bureaucracy and this, that, and the other thing, and would rather put a fucking fountain in the middle of town square as opposed to paying police officers or getting more police officers on the street, then what is one to do? We have the right to protest. We have the right to dissent. Everyone has the right to dissent. But as soon as that bat or whatever cracks against your face, free speech is over. And you have to defend yourself. Period.
And you know, the wonderful thing about a final summation is nobody gets anything to say about it. So I would say that all three of us made our final points, and they were very articulate. And it is what it is. We all have our own ideas. In the end, I want to put one more thing on it. Defend yourself. That's the rule in boxing. I love boxing. I've followed boxing. I've tried to be a boxer, but I'm more of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. Not that great of a boxer. But the rule number one is defend yourself at all times. So whatever you engage in, defend your ideology and your own mind and your own thoughts as much as you would defend your person, your own physical well-being in the end. Do that, folks. So I got this, Britisher and Wolf Shot. If you'd like to stay, you can stay as long as you'd like. I'm getting some information, Britt, that, and this is a 20-minute long video, so I'm not going to go and just start playing Lionel's video, even though I'm sure he wouldn't mind. We wouldn't get any trouble for it. I'm just not going to take time to play a 20-minute video now. I'm going to start searching for some information. This is the heading to it, Britt. A shell company on SJW has triggered a Lionel Nation video on hashtag Seth Rich with a bogus DMCA claim, apparently Britisher. Here's the long and short of it. Lionel can't live stream right now.
He can't live stream. If there's a DMCA claim against him, he can't live stream. So there's clearly an act of sabotage there, isn't there?
Well, sir, this is making my heart go aflutter, mate, because this is therapy for me. I love hanging out with you. The one time I know that you and I will get together is when we do this, and then we get a chance to chin wag a little bit after. It's great for me. When are they going to say, you know what, I don't like what the Britishers said? And is that what this comes down to? This is not, when we say DMCA, could you explain it to me, Britisher? You know what that is?
Well, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a kind of a copyright strike, isn't it? That someone basically claims that he has violated their copyright.
Okay, because I thought that it was a community strike that made you stop with the live stream, because if it's a copyright strike, I thought you could just take the video down. So they're not even letting him take it down.
No, you know, I am kind of talking off the top of my head here. I'm
me
not
too.
I'm not that well versed in this respect.
And help us out, chat. We're doing this for y'all.
I once had a strike whereby a video of mine was taken down. It was then afterwards restored. But so that might have been something more in keeping in that regard, where I did a video defining the background of the feminist term, the sex object, as to where does it actually come from? How did the use of that term come about? And yeah, that got a strike and was taken down. Now, at the time, more than likely, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have been able to do live streams. Now, as you know, I have never done a live stream yet on my channel. So I never kind of got to find out that would have been the case. But chances are, were I to be doing live streams, I would suddenly have found myself blocked.
And I have some text here, Brett. I actually been furiously searching while I'm trying to pay attention and look at the chat. Let me send you the link too, and we can kind of play along with it as we do so often while I let you catch up here. And because Lionel has actually written those, I got to say this while you're looking at this. If they, oh man, I've watched every one of his live streams live if I can, and then caught up on it for the last month. And as I've told you in private, Brett, I'll say it live now. I watch Boogie, I watch Lionel Nation, and I watch Philip DeFranco, because not only are they entertaining, and not only are they giving me information, but I'm also able to pick up cues and to see analogies that they use and manners of speech. In other words, I am in school when I watch them, as well as being entertained and informed. So I watch these men, and I know what Lionel says. I know what he does. And if they can shut him up, if they want to shut him up, man, we're in trouble, mate. We are in trouble. So here we go. It says, "It seems, my friends, that I, yours truly," in fact, let me screen share this. That way, you know, I'm not just making something up. I'll pop this up when I'm about ready to read to you. I don't know if I'll go through the whole thing. We'll see how far we get. This is from Lionel himself. This is The Fringe. And this is written by Lionel, published today, July 7th, 2017. It says, "It seems, my friends, that I, yours truly, a fellow truth warrior and sentinel of variety, am the victim." Man, am I going to be able to even read his writing, Britisher, is the question. The guy is a little, not convoluted, but he definitely is word. He's in trouble. He's in trouble for a fraudulent copyright claim filed by what appears to be a sham or shell company called Texoso Media, who appears to target anyone who speaks to the subject of Seth Rich's murder, and more importantly, questions his assassination, of which it most certainly was. He's saying right now, even as this is happening and they're shutting him down, that it most certainly was an assassination. He says, "Until YouTube reverses the strike or I sit it out for 3 months as a penalty, I am unable to join you for our date." Man, Brett, I'm going to read it, but this is actually hurting my feelings, Britisher. He is right now part of my personal therapy, and I really enjoy his stream. So here we go. Let me just buck up and be the news anchor that I would like to be one day. "Until YouTube reverses the strike or I sit out the 3 months as penalty, I'm unable to join you for our daily live stream broadcasts. I have violated no copyright laws and have proceeded with the prescribed counter notification." And then he says, "Here are the facts. On July 6, 2017, it said posted, I think he meant I posted, a YouTube live stream entitled Lionel Nation live stream, the media ignored that Seth Rich was assassinated. It was removed, as is the subject of this action. Has been removed. It was live with chat room participants, no music, no pictures, nothing but opinion, and protected no and protected no copyright
Ideations.
ideations. What the hell is an ideation?
I've never heard that one too, but I would assume that's how it's pronounced.
Ideations. He said later a claim was made that it violated copyright. It makes me feel a little better that you didn't know what that word was. This guy is too smart for his own good sometimes. I love you, Lionel, but come on, dumb it down for, if you got to dumb it down for the British, or dumb it down a little bit for the ogre. So it says it appears evident that what it involved as subject matter via a visa, vis-a-vis Seth Rich's assassination. They're saying that his topic
is copyrighted. Now, I mean, you know, in order to give some kind of sort of indication on this, when I had my video taken down, it took roughly 2 weeks for it to be reinstated. Because obviously it means that somebody actually needs to put eyeballs on it. So you can basically put in your explanation, which in my case I just did. I just said, look, there is absolutely nothing wrong in this video. It completely meets all your community standards. I was actually talking about a feminist topic. This clearly was just a claim put in by somebody who didn't like the subject matter. And without any problems, it was reversed. But because, of course, on YouTube, there are so many millions of videos flying about, can you imagine just how many of them get flagged in some way, shape, or form? So it takes some time for YouTube staff to actually be able to look at it. Now, in my case, it took 2 weeks, I believe.
2 weeks. For him, that would be 14 at least, because sometimes he does 2 a day. That would be 14 of my beloved live streams with my beloved Lionel Nation gone.
Yes. Unless you know, there's always the possibility that mine was just an example that was a bit slower than usual. I don't know, but the only anecdotal evidence I can give you in that regard is my own example, and that took 2 weeks. It might even have taken longer than that if I think back. But I don't want to worry you too much, Mr. Ogre.
And you know me, I might be a little more theatrical. I mean, my life's not going to end, obviously, but I will say it again. I watched Lionel Nation get up. Lionel did a little thing, about 10 minutes, on his way to host a radio show in New York City for these guys. I can't remember their names. I don't even care about them. I listened to the radio show twice because Lionel was doing it. And he's such a guy, man, that even though he was going to do this 3-hour broadcast, Britt, with hard breaks, I mean, what we do here is tougher than a lot of people might think it is, to make it flow and to make it be interesting and all these things we do. Not only is he dealing with that, but he's dealing with random callers that might say anything, hard breaks coming up, what a master. But even though that was going on and he knew he had to do that, he still brought me my live stream that day and had his word for the day. And I don't agree with everything he says, but man, he had his words of wisdom. This is not bumming me out. I don't want to be too theatrical about it. What it's doing is it's making me worry about my little future, about your little future, mate. We enjoy this. I think I can speak for you.
In this case, I think there is something a bit more sinister that we need to ask ourselves. And that is, why would somebody set up a shell company that would challenge anybody claiming that Seth Rich was assassinated online?
I'm not going to say it. I'm scared to say why now, Brett, because I think that
I think anybody who actually hears the question more than likely can divine the answer for themselves. I think the question alone already says it all. Why would anybody have an interest in setting up a company that seems to be a shell company whose sole purpose is to challenge anybody saying that Seth Rich was assassinated?
Well, as Susan Anderson says right here in the chat, something sinister is going on, Britisher. As I've heard written once, something wicked this way comes, my friend.
Yeah, no, that does strike me as sinister. And you know, in order once again to bore everyone to death with my Romans, and to go a little more lighthearted, You are aware of the fact that the word sinister actually is from Latin and it means left.
No, I did not know that. Oh, because left-handedness was considered.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I would now. You jog my memory. Yes.
Yes, it's so basically the left hand is the sinister hand. So that's where it comes from. So it's basically left-handed people are sinister people. So all you lefties out there, we know who you are.
We got your number. Well,
I
Brett,
think actually in that regard there was a little gag in Carry On Cleo, which is, again, it's from that sort of classic film series of comedies that is the Carry On series that was done sort of in the 1960s and early 1970s here in Britain. And Carry On Cleo is one of their best. And it's where they're basically in ancient Rome. And it tends to be the same group of stock actors, if you know what I mean. And one of the beautiful gags at the beginning is when you've got the centurion leading the troops, driving them all insane as he walks ahead going, sinister, Dexter, sinister, Dexter, sinister, Dexter.
because of course he's left-handed.
Well, no, it's sinister Dexter would mean left, right, left, right, left, right.
Okay.
Except, of course, it's that awkward to say in Latin that it would drive everyone, anybody insane would have to listen to that for several hours.
Well, it just struck me too what Me Too was saying out here in the chat, because I was watching, Brett, and I'll just say the number now. I was watching with you one night. I can't remember if you couldn't see the chat. Lionel Nation routinely gets $100 contributions on his super chat. Routinely. 55 happens all the time. I've seen him get $500. Boom, $500. Because I've seen people give him like 50,000 yen, which I think is $50. And when I seen it, I was like, holy crap, somebody just get, and I go, oh, it's yen. Oh, I see. And then when that 500 came up, I was like, oh, it must be, rubles. Or something. And I looked and no, $500. So every day, let's just take the low end. Every day they do this to him, he's lost $200-300. They're breaking his rice bowl. How much have we even said that in the last week?
Yeah. And again, I mean, that is what he has been led to believe, that it is a company that challenges anybody who is saying something about Seth Rich. But there is always the possibility that it might just be somebody who disagrees with his political views. It's not as if that has not happened online, is it?
Only every day and twice on Sunday. Yeah. I mean, I'm worried. Look, you and I right now, I'm going back to us because, I don't know, you're my mate. I feel like I ride your coattails sometimes, but guess what? Sometimes I feel like you might be on mine. So it's all even up. But one day we might look to hone our skills as we are now, and we might want to maybe be recompensed for our labors. Man, the more I see this, the more I'm just disabusing myself of that notion, sir.
Yeah, it is kind of worrying. I mean, I mentioned Sargon in the last week that was. Basically, here is somebody who basically is making a living this way. And then because of something Ms. Sarkeesian said, he suddenly has his entire income questioned. And you look at that and you just think, I'm sorry, but this in a way ties into what I was saying before about civil society. That just as we have to understand that in civil society, you don't take matters into your own hand and go down to the town square with a club to visit the demonstration, on whichever side of the demonstration you happen to be on. In that very same way, you cannot be part of a democratic society and just go about, trying to close people down like that. It just doesn't work.
No, it's the same thing. The club just doesn't hurt you physically. It hurts you financially. In fact, what hurts you financially ends up hurting you physically, mate. You can't afford your health care. You can't afford your food. You can't. I mean, good gracious. I do believe Sargon makes more money than the $6,000. I'm sure he does. But I can guarantee you, I don't care if he makes 10 times that, which I don't think he does. I think that's the lion's share of his income. But no matter what, when you start thinking about somebody taking this from you, and Britisher, before I just ramble on, Steve Shives, I believe is his name. Somebody retweeted this thing yesterday. I think I sent it to you on a DM. Steve Shives is there talking about why, of course, YouTube and Patreon need to review the people on there. Of course, there's these people out there like I mean, I could go so far as to say the Worski brothers. I've got no love lost for them boys. But Britisher, do you think that I believe they should lose $1 if they can make it?
No, I don't think you do.
No.
But I think when it comes to Steve Shives, sorry, I've got the lozenge lodged in my teeth here.
Now let me make a disclaimer: the Britisher has a little throat thing going on, so just give him props that he's even here today. Carry on.
When it comes to Steve Shives, I mean, there we just have another master of dogma, don't we? That basically, I have seen some of the intellectual contortions this man has gone through in order to try and justify the unjustifiable at times. I mean, I still remember his video that certain ideas have just been done and dusted and therefore no longer are worthy of debate because his side has established that they are in the right and the other people are in the wrong.
Yeah, because of course we need gender studies, right, mate?
Yes, yeah, very much so, yes. And you just basically listen to that and you just go, I'm sorry, but which planet exactly is this man from? And this has all come about by dogma. And I could very well imagine that a much younger Steve Shives would actually look at what the present Steve Shives has become and would despair at what he hears.
I have a hard time believing that the Steve Shives that is now in this moment believes. To me, I still don't remember that guy's name, but to me, he's like the guy with the mustachios, the punch a Nazi dude.
Oh yes,
I'm not sure he
something Botten, wasn't it?
Yeah, Botten. I don't think I have a hard time believing that he believes his own rhetoric, because if you and I were the ones benevolently in charge, which we both know this isn't the fact, but I'm just going to play devil's advocate, I guess maybe we would look at Steve Shives and say, whoa, people give him money on Patreon and he makes money this way and that way. He shouldn't be getting paid to spew this insane fifth wave feminist nonsense. Wouldn't we say that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think at the heart of it, we just basically have to somehow, I mean, do people actually still get taught how, how the democratic system, how it actually works? Are they actually still taught that at school? Because somehow I've got the feeling it's almost as if a significant part of our population, particularly our younger population, the millennials, seem to kind of need to be taught how things basically work, particularly that they have to let other people speak.
Even if they disagree with them.
Yes, precisely. Especially when they disagree with them. Because, there is absolutely no art in listening to somebody tell you what you want to hear. But when it comes to somebody telling you perhaps an inconvenient truth, then you ought to have the courtesy to listen.
Inconvenient truth. Did you slip that Al Gore shit in there intentionally? Phrasing,
of course. It's us MI6 officers.
Because you're forever going to be accused. The whole ding dong today. I mean, you were called everything but a British citizen, and everything but an educated British citizen. You were, and myself included. And of course, I am a crazy righty, and I believe that this time you were kind of being accused of being a righty just because you had an opinion. And usually, you're accused of being this diehard, staunch lefty Labour Party lackey.
I must, in order to elaborate a bit for the audience, when the ogre mentions a ding dong, there was a bit of a ding dong on Twitter earlier today, in which somebody basically took it upon himself to declare that, well, Trump supporters were less well educated than the supporters of Hillary Clinton. And let's say I took umbrage at that, because I had already heard that argument forwarded with the Brexit And as many will know, I actually voted against Brexit, but I was absolutely appalled when I then heard people who had voted against Brexit come out and somehow describe that the people who had voted the other way were somehow less qualified to vote. Because to me, if that is how you react, well then, why have a referendum to start with? Why bother asking the people?
Yeah,
What
why
is
not
the
just
point of
have
democracy?
Why not just have property owning, wealthy white people vote if that's the case, and also educated,
or any other particular minority that can then just lord it over everybody else?
Yeah, because I believe I finally found it. I had to go through 198 notifications, but I finally came through. So I'll screen share what it was that that got your goat. You know, I don't know, didn't get your goat. That's not. I don't want to say triggered. This is the one that got you thinking, where he showed this.
No, I think it was actually before that. It was before that. This was when he was trying to. This was when he was desperately trying to shore himself up with, in inverted commas, facts. Basically there was a case in which he was basically saying that Trump supporters were less educated, and I just basically couldn't abide that. I thought, well, I'm sorry, but if that is your view, then why partake in democracy?
Well, and that's the easiest thing, to dismiss somebody for any reason. Because what we're talking about here, I mean, come on. So you're going to say only a certain group can vote because you're dismissing everybody else? If you say, okay, well, this is the way it is, but look at this. And I had to mention, I thought it was the graph, because the graph got me, man. Because myself, I've been to the hollowed halls of higher education. I think it took a little something off the top, Britisher. I mean, if anything, I came out with some knowledge that I wouldn't have otherwise. Don't get me wrong. I could talk to you about Benjamin Rush, and I could talk to you about a lot of psychological guff right now.
Yeah.
But guess what? That doesn't get me anywhere in society at all. Not at all. So when I saw that, I responded this way. Well, there's liars, there's damn liars, and there's statistics. You can't just say, well, but look at those that voted for them for this, and then say, but I am for democracy. You're for one or the other.
Well, what it was with me was the fact that I had seen this argument before, and it had appalled me when I had seen it before. And it had appalled me when it was my own side using it. So in that regard, I found myself kind of in the right place at the right time to kind of face somebody who was basically doing the same thing, just the American version. And in this case, deriding the people who had voted for someone who, once again, I am not a great fan of, Donald Trump.
Oh, you hate his guts. Just say it.
But we are supposed to be kind of subscribed to the entire democratic ideal. You don't like the result, and you then suddenly wish to undermine the legitimacy of who you didn't want to get in. Oh, well, yes, but it was all the dumb people who voted for him. Then I'm sorry, I have absolutely no time for you. None whatsoever.
Yeah, and I hope we're not having any technical difficulties out there in the chat. If we are, we're not going to go a ton longer anyway. We're kind of trying to put a cherry on, I think, the whole thing. And why? I don't know why. I can't do a 4-hour stream every day of my life. And it's, you know, sometimes I want to and I can't, and sometimes I can't and I don't want to. So that's the way it is. But hopefully we're still out there. But I think we may be. I'm not sure. My internet has been acting so funny last night. I don't know. I was there with Logical Lion, and
screen still says live. So as far as I'm concerned, we're still out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not gonna assume. I'm not gonna do anything untoward, sir. I guarantee you that. In fact, I never probably will, as long as the thing. Never mind. Let's move on to something else. The whole idea of Lionel Nation being taken down, Britisher. The next thing is Boogie's going to get taken down for the hillbilly thing. He's got the Budweiser hat. You ever seen that? He just did one in the cave. I can't remember the guy's name, but he has an alter ego that's a hillbilly.
Yeah, is it Kevin or something like that?
Yeah. Okay. And he's good. I tell you what, I'm a hillbilly, and he pulls off the best Southern accent that I've really ever heard outside of Hollywood from a dude.
Well, it's a sort of Southern accent, but with a speech impediment and a lot of swearing.
Yeah, when it's Western too, it's not really Southern. I'd say it's more Western Texas, maybe Colorado. He's got that Colorado, you know, he's got a more of a Western, but he's got that twang that you don't even hear a hint of in his everyday voice. Boy, I just derailed that, but I love Boogie. And we're talking about Lionel Nation. We've talked about Sargon. And of everything that happened, Britt, you know what I'm going to say? What's bumming me out is that bitch, because attack the ogre. Go ahead. Tell me to go eat a shotgun. Tell me whatever. Go ahead. Fine. I don't have a lot of I have a lot of personal hangups. Don't get me wrong. But I don't have a lot of personal hangups that lend someone I don't know or have never seen or will never have any influence on my life saying something bad to me, affecting me. Boogie, he's admitted that those things bother him. You know, he's admitted that in his life he's had things come to him that were psychologically difficult to deal with, that mentally caused him trauma, that emotionally brought him down. I'm not an SJW, and I'm not going to white knight Boogie. But I'm going to say this. If you're standing out there and you're talking about this is a garbage human because he pointed out that I'm a moron, and say that he's making money off you and only you when he's made maybe 4 or 5, a handful of videos out of hundreds on you, you are irrelevant. You want to be relevant. And now with your bully pulpit and all of your sycophantic, insane followers, you attack this mild, humble, wonderful human being that I'll tell you this, Ether, those listening in Britisher too, if I had my choice, mate, you're one of the only people that I've never looked at in the eyes that I would choose to have a cup of tea with over Boogie. I would love to sit down with that guy and just let him talk to me, let him tell me about his life. He is the nicest, softest, kindest individual. And to use that bully pulp that way, they need to look, if they're going to do it, I'm saying this metaphorically, I don't believe this shit for a minute, but they need to look into you, Miss Anita Sarkeesian. They need to look into why you're making money and if your Patreon should be there when you are bullying and fat shaming and phobia shaming this man that has a problem even coming into society and trying to force him back and stifle what he has to say. Shame on you, Anita.
And that comes from a gentleman with a psychology degree.
Yeah, it does.
No, but yeah, one thing interesting about Boogie, of course, was also that who were the people, basically, who was it that people like Sargon of Akkad and Matt Jarbo, who is Mundane Matt, who is it that they wanted to meet? It was Boogie. So he seems to have quite a sort of celebrity fan base, doesn't he?
He's very magnetic. He's a very magnetic individual. You know it, Britisher. I would not know who the man was if it wasn't for you. You were like, one day you were like, have you ever heard of Boogie 19? I don't even know the numbers behind his name right now. 19 whatever. And I was like, I never heard of 2988. I was like, who's that? And then I just went and looked at him. If you remember, because I'm callous, I was like, oh, it's some fat guy. And then you were like, no, really, go watch one of his videos. And I did. I fell in love with that man, and I love him now. And I don't know him.
4 million other people. That's just it. He is just somebody who wears his heart on his sleeve. He seems to have had quite a kind of damaging youth and whatever, but he's quite open about it. And he basically says that he kind of readily admits that this is kind of his dream job. And basically that's just basically the thing he wants to do. As he still can. Now, I don't know. I seem to be presenting, I'm told here.
Well, I'm trying to switch it, Britisher. The last time this happened was yesterday. So I'm switching back and forth manually, and I keep trying to stop presenting. But I think the last time, well, yesterday when I did anything, it just ended the chat. And whereas we're getting close, we're on a bit of a roll. So let's just try to ignore it. I will do my very best. You know what I'll do while you're here? Let me leave the room as soon as we get something talking about and you're rolling. I will leave. You'll see me pop out, but I'll pop back in and see if that don't fix it. If not, folks, I'm sorry to deal with it, man. It's going to be one of our faces.
I sent you a link regarding Ms. Sheila Michaels. because you mentioned Ms. Sarkeesian, and I always am very definite at referring to her as Ms. Sarkeesian, because of course Sheila Michaels has just died. That was an announcement on the BBC, and she was effectively the woman who popularized Ms, because of course Mrs. or Miss was not good enough. So yes, it is once again one of these kind of stark feminist figures who, to my mind, just made the world that little bit less magical. Now, she wasn't actually the person who invented the term Ms. It seems to have been around for quite a lot longer. Apparently almost as early as 1900, which I'm told in the BBC article. I'm not sure myself whether I believe that or not. But apparently she was the one who kind of picked it up and said that this was a kind of a form of address that should be introduced, because it doesn't announce one's marital status, because women shouldn't be defined by that.
Yeah, so it doesn't delineate either Miss or Mrs, where you're either married or you're not.
Yeah. So she was the one who introduced Ms and popularized it. And now you have got armies of feminists who will be insulted and offended if they're referred to as Miss or Mrs. Because,
so what do you think? What do you think they think when I call them sweetness or sweet thing?
Oh, I think then they believe you're the Beelzebub.
Beelzebub himself. Because you were saying it was. I always knew love, but man, you just told me something, and I'm trying to remember. Get your wet end or something you told me last time. I'm trying to get these phrases, but so it's love, and there's another thing that Brits say to females.
In areas, particularly of the north of England, you will get love. In southwestern England, sort of Cornwall, that kind of area, you will get lover. And in the northeast, you will get pet.
Pet, that's the one I was trying to remember. Pet.
So you will have women of all ages. I mean, this can be a 90-year-old lady getting onto a train, and you'll have a conductor say, "Are you all right, pet? I'll find you a seat." And no one will take offense. That is, of course, unless they are a feminist, and then all hell breaks loose.
Well, Britisher, why would they want to give that up? Why would the women want me? Look at me. I'm a Greek god with a beard. Why wouldn't they want me to hold the door? I see them 15 paces behind me. I don't care if it's a 10-year-old girl, a beautiful young lady, an old wrinkled lady. I always look behind me because it's the way I was raised. My mama told me to be good to women. Whatever else she may have done wrong, she did that right. I look over my shoulder. If I see a female there coming my way, I will hold the door. And I say, after you, sweetness. That's my go-to thing. I say, after you, sweetness. Why would they want to give that up? What do you want me to let the door slam in your face and say, go fuck yourself?
Well, the thing is that what happens here in Britain is those areas in particular, you have had kind of municipal government and things like that, and also corporations issue guidance to their staff saying they ought not do that anymore. Because, of course, you know, the 0.5% of their customers who might take offense might otherwise complain. And you just think, I'm sorry, but the entire region speaks that way. That is what people do in that part of the world.
Well, and it's
one of the very identifying articles of the people who live there. Why would you do away with that? You are basically denying them part of their own culture.
And taking away the deference given to a lady. Love? I mean, you say, good evening, love. Can I get the door for you, love? What do you want? Hey, bitch, how you doing? To me, well, when you refer to them with one of the best, probably the best human emotion, you're putting them up on a pedestal. So what? That's where a woman belongs, in my mind.
When it comes to pet in the northeast of England, that is definitely something that is said to women. But when it comes to love and lover, that can just as well be a woman saying it to a man in those parts of the world. So that it isn't actually even specifically only said to women. But it's just part of the kind of flavor of those parts of the world. It is specific to certain areas of Britain. And I have personally never seen any problem with that. But it is one of these things that is now being regulated out of existence because, well, somebody might complain, and we all know that those people have more than likely been to a, you know, they've possibly got a gender studies degree.
Yeah, and I put that book up, and that is the problem with gender studies. Nobody's here to argue with us right now, mate, so I'll say this. The reason we don't need that insanity in academia, outside of what you mentioned so perfectly yesterday, that we already have a million sociology and psychology classes that deal with intergender communications and intergender studies. It's all there without gender studies. When we put this in there, you know what I was thinking, Bersher? I can only imagine it's like, you know, it's early 40s and I'm a serviceman going over to merry old England, and I step into a pub, never been to a pub in my life, and they're playing billiards and shooting darts, and some beautiful young lady comes over and says, "How you doing tonight, love?" Ah, man, you couldn't slap the smile off my face, because as a Yank, I would be like, "Ooh, she called me love." That's groovy, man. You know, it's just the way it's done. Our societies are trying to be broken down to the point where we can't use that kind of emotion with a stranger. That goes back to the Britisher. I mean, isn't it sexist if you happen to be on the tube and you look over and there's a beautiful young lady there, and maybe she looks a little down, or for whatever, who cares what she looks like, but you happen to see it's a nice spring day and you feel like saying, "Well, you look very nice today, young lady. You've really made my day. You're beautiful." Well, good Lord, now you sexually assaulted her, and you're sexist and all of these things.
Yes, call your lawyer now. Yes.
Oh, makes me a little, it hurts, and it's making our societies all edge just as bad as saying that Base Stick Man needs to have the alt nights. To me, it's just as evil. It might not hurt quite as much as a stick does, but the minute that I can't go out in public and tell some old lady that's got the wrinkles of care on her face and the crow's feet and the laugh lines, and yeah, she's old, man, she's stove up, but you can see in her eyes that she was one day a beautiful woman. And regardless of her physical beauty, you can see that she's a beautiful person. You say, "Hey, you look really good today, young lady." That's another go-to thing for me with old ladies. You know, if I see an old lady and I'm holding the door, "How you doing today, young lady? Let me get that for you." I don't know. When they take that away from us, man, it's going to be a lot easier to form these factions.
Well, I think the word you're looking for here is subversion. It actually subverts society, because it subverts ways in which society works. Not so much on a political level, but just on a social level, the way people interact with each other, that you are seeking to regiment that. You're seeking also to homogenize that everybody must be exactly the same. From all the way from Aberdeen, all the way down to Brighton, everyone must speak exactly the same way, and there can't be any particular quirks and differences and eccentricities. I mean, that is also one particular thing that these kind of regimenters and regulators seem to have an extraordinary difficulty with, and that is eccentricity. That basically the eccentric nowadays is kind of the ultimate sinner, because he refuses to fit in and conform. And in that regard, I guess all this kind of trying to enforce one's value system and one's kind of almost corporate behavior onto everybody is a means by which everybody need conform to a given standard that those particular people have chosen to define. And personally, yes, it kind of gets my heckles up.
Well, is it just egocentrism where they want to be egocentric and say, if you're not like me, I know you're going to hate where I'm going with this, but deal with it. You're not like me, but I want you to be like me. Is it only on the individuals that make up these groups, or is there a larger plot in taking away these things from our society?
I see now why you gave me that warning. No, I don't think there is a plot as such, because a plot always implies a kind of conscious agency that is kind of, we want to do this. I think very often these kind of trends, they're kind of unwitting. They kind of act almost like a conscious agency, but I don't really, as you know, I'm not really one for conspiracy theories. I see conspiracies in some things and whatever, but very, very rarely. Then I'm quite happy to be called a madman.
Well, you're not giving in to your inner madman. That's what I'm trying to get you to do, is that, because look, Brett, this is what I believe. I'm not joking with you either. A lot of things came up yesterday. I might not agree with everything people said, but I know what the CFR is. I know about the, I know that there's something going on in where it's trickling down from, the idea that you can't call somebody love. The idea that if I say, hey, you look great today, young lady, you know, whether it be that now sexually assault him, humongous, my name's humongous, you sexually assaulted me, all this stuff. There's a division happening. And I mean, Adolphus Huxley, man, Brave New World, for some reason, and let me be transparent. The powers that be don't want a community at all. They want the family to be done for sure. And they've started a long time ago, but they're starting now to seriously implement the breaking down of the social, I love you, even though I don't know you. You're beautiful, and I want you to be happy, even though it won't make me one stiver richer. I would like you to have a good day today. They want that to end. Why? It's easier to control single parent homes. There's more poverty. There's more slaves. Anyway, there you go, Brett. This is happening for sure. We know it's happening.
This is where I don't agree, and that is, I see what you mean, that there are certain areas breaking down in society, but to my mind, I see it more as kind of certain ideas were introduced, and at first they might have been seen as something that might improve matters, but now they're being kind of introduced to the nth degree. So basically, once one follows the principle that lies behind those ideas, one basically opens the gates of hell.
How could it improve matters, or do you not have an opinion on that?
Well, I mean, you know, if you look at sort of, you know, the very origins of feminism, it's about an idea of justice. I mean, you know, the word justice is in the word social justice. And you could basically say that Martin Luther King, whom you mentioned earlier, was engaged in the matter of social justice. So you can see that certain basic ideas are there. But once you start pushing them through to the absolute bitter end, it's as almost, you know, that basically you realize perhaps a certain way right from the outset for a reason.
Britisher, when you let me just counter that. We have a word. Martin Luther King was not social justice. He had nothing to do with social justice. Justice, period. When you have a perfectly good word like correct, you change the meaning, you change the ethos of the word when you make it politically correct. You've taken a wonderful word, correct. You were correct, Britisher. I agree with you on that point. Ogre, the test that you did was done correctly. It's correct. You take a good word and you make it politic. It's all changed. You take a word like justice that Martin Luther King was striving for, and many, many, many others, but I did mention him earlier, was striving for, and you take it politically correct. Martin Luther King would have, in my opinion, would have nothing to do with anything politically correct today. He would be an anti-social justice warrior. Social justice?
In that regard, I agree with you absolutely wholeheartedly that Martin Luther King would have a fit if he would see social justice today. But, sorry, but I would still say that he He represented social justice of his age, but at that time it was pursuing something worthwhile. So it was basically seeking to discrimination, but it was actually real discrimination. It wasn't perceived discrimination. It wasn't imagined discrimination. Now one is seeking to basically rid the world of ever and ever smaller supposed discriminations. One is dealing with microaggressions. Basically, it's almost as if one has run out of real stuff to be motivated regarding social justice about. And instead, one is going into ever more and more petty absurdities.
But you can't see how the interjection of these new words is causing a bigger problem, Britt. That's the point I was trying to make. I know you got it. You didn't really address it, though.
Well, no, I wouldn't really say that it's, you know, correct and politically correct and justice and social justice. I think that it was social justice then. It is just basically one actually had something profound to deal with, whereas now it's just become ridiculous.
Well, and they had to twist it from justice to social justice. Maybe it's just semantics. But what I'm trying to get across to you is, because there's nothing to focus on, there are no dragons to slay. King George did his duty. The world is rid of dragons.
Yes and no. Basically, we are seeing other dragons, but in that regard, this kind of weaponry has only been developed and been built to basically fire at a particular type of thing.
Okay, well, and so to clarify with me, what would be a modern day dragon, so to speak?
What would be a modern day dragon? Basically, over the weekend, over the 4th of July weekend, over 100 people got shot in Chicago. That's a modern day dragon. That's something needs to be done about. That's what we need a movement for. That's what we need Obama leading 1 or 2 million people to Washington on a march. But nobody is doing anything about that. We have also got other dragons, as in the state is now listening in on everybody. Somehow the right to privacy has just gone out the window because, inverted commas, terrorism. As much as I have some sort of sympathy for that, we seem to have created a beast that was never going to let go of us, because even when the last terrorist on earth is shot, they will not let go, because that would basically put them out of existence. They will always be a raised terrorism threat, no matter how peaceable or pacified the world has become, because we have created this monster that needs it in order to perpetuate itself. And we have to rely on them, who operate in complete secrecy without being accountable to us. That basically there is a threat out there. And those sort of dangers we have created ourselves without there really being proper constitutional ways of dealing with them. And in that regard, yes, there are different dragons, there are different beasts. And this is one of the things that really actually, you know, you always say that I never get riled, I never get rattled about anything. This was one of the things that actually did rile me, when over the last 20 years, we have seen governments effectively use the liberalization of homosexuality as a kind of fig leaf. So while they have been actually increasingly authoritarian and less liberal, they have still been kind of operating a charade by which they're actually pretending still to be liberal Western democracies in the tradition of our nations as they have been before, because they basically always held up, oh, look what we've done for the gays this week.
Wow. Wow.
And basically it's been a card trick that while they have actually pumped more and more and more hardline legislation through, in which they have clamped down on our democracies and on us, on our rights as individuals, they have at the same time been waving rainbow flags and telling us all how, you know, enlightened and advanced and liberal we are. And to me, that has been quite a bone of contention.
Damn good monologue there, mate. And that's what I was hoping you'd say. I can't even add to that, because we're focusing attention. And Britisher, I know it seems crazy, but I got to say it one more time. The semantics are so important. I would wish that my mate, the Britisher, would stop saying social justice at all. It's either justice or not justice. When we give these people the ability to use these words and to use these concepts and to interject these concepts into our society, well, we're letting them do all this virtue signaling. We're letting them create their own pathos. We're letting them create their own reality. And man, something's got to give. Britisher, I'm going to wrap it up here real quick. So I said real. I think it's because, man, I was listening to Lionel Nation, and he's like talking about, was he mentioning? And he's saying he can't say the A, and he kept saying real and Joel instead of jail and all these things, mocking this dude. And then I found myself saying all these words with a thing because it was in my head. He got it in my head. Man, I hope I'm not going to bust off on this. What I want to do, though, Britt, if you're willing, listen, there's 19 people out here. Thanks for coming by. Revelation News, good to see you. V4 Vaughn, always good to see you. Review the Earth, of course. You're my brother. Sardonic 7. Oh, my gracious, there's so many here. Britt, let me get a couple more, though. Mad Dodge Production, always good to see you in the chat. I watch everything. I don't always respond, but I've seen everything that's been typed. I really appreciate it. Of course, Captain Cole Pile. And Me Too always has some great input. So if there was something that any of these people I named or anyone else that's here listening and hasn't commented in a second would like to ask myself or the Britisher on this topic or on any other, Britt, I'd like to give them about 15 minutes while we wrap it up before I do my final word, and see if they got something to ask us. Now, of course, if you ask the Britisher where he's from, we're just going to joke inside jokes and give you the runaround about him being an MI6 robot. If you ask me about what kind of poontang I like to eat, we're just going to joke and laugh about the 15 wives I have and a bunch of inside jokes. So if you have any real questions, real questions to ask about social justice warriors, about the idea of dangerous dogma, anything like that, now would be a good time. And I think the Britisher would be very honest with you. I will probably lie to you. Britt, not only has it been a good show today, but it's not only been a good show today.
Me Too has just asked my height and weight.
Okay, well, there you go. First question.
Well, I don't know, I mean, given that I, of course, sport the physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger, all you need to do is look up his height and weight, and you've got a good idea. You're
not going to tell him, Brett. You're not going to tell. That's fine. He ain't going to tell y'all. So I do know. I could roughly guess, but I'm not going to even do that. He's probably about 5'5" and 350 pounds, and stuffs Cheetos into his fat jowls with the pudgy palm of his hand.
Well, that is kind of fairly average. That is fairly average build for us people from southwestern Kazakhstan.
No, and if y'all believe what I just said, I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, real cheap, man, real super cheap. So here, is there any other questions here? Let me look here. It's a Britisher height and weight. Okay, it's a question. This is from Review the Earth. What does the Britisher know about Fox News acquiring or merging with Sky News? Do you know anything about that?
Well, you see, what it is the Murdochs. Rupert Murdoch is basically a kind of billionaire these days, I believe, who started in Australia. I believe he kind of got sort of sports syndications for, I think it was kind of Aussie rules football at first, and then also rugby and rugby league, things like that, in which he actually made quite a bit of money. He bought British newspapers like the Times, the Sun newspaper, the News of the World, which recently was sort of closed down in disgrace after a phone hacking scandal. And he also started, based on his experience in Australia, he started a company here called, or he kind of got involved with it, which is now Sky, or Sky B, which owns Sky News. It's one of their channels. It's kind of one of these sort of, operations that kind of puts out movie channels and all sorts of stuff on cable and satellite. Obviously, having like that made himself phenomenally rich. He eventually managed to acquire 20th Century Fox, or what would now be 21st Century Fox, which also happens to own Fox News. I mean, I think it was pretty much one of sort of the creations since he took over Fox. What it is he, as such, I don't think owns a controlling stake in Sky over here. So he now wants to swallow it completely. So he has previously tried, but that was just before the scandal broke with the phone hacking, which ended the News of the World newspaper. And that kind of gave him such bad headlines that he kind of withdrew. But at that time, I think it was actually the Murdochs themselves that wanted to take it over. Now he's trying it through Fox, wanting to buy the remaining stake of Sky B. The reason this is important is because the British government will effectively have a say on whether they allow this or not. Because this is one of the areas in which Parliament kind of reserves the right to block it, based on the fact of it possibly handing someone too great a monopoly to become dominant in the market. Because if you own several large national newspapers and you're taking over a big news broadcaster like Sky News, then you might become too dominant. Now, of course, the argument that people like Murdoch would put forward is, well, hang on a moment, look at the BBC. I mean, they're an absolute leviathan. How can I be too dominant when compared to them? So, as such, particularly a conservative government would be quite well disposed towards someone like Murdoch taking over, because his newspapers all tend to be rather with a slight sort of with a right bias. So it would kind of be leaning towards them. But of course, particularly in an atmosphere like ours now, it then becomes very much a political thing. Can the Conservatives be seen to be giving him the right to take over Sky News, which favours them, when they're in a bit of a wobbly situation in Parliament? So it's one of those things where it's kind of, we just basically have to see what happens. But chances are the Monopolies and Mergers Commission will have something to say about it, whether they allow him to take it over or not.
Well, there you go. Another excellent monologue. I will say that I'm going to break this up. We got questions for both of us coming up here. That was pretty, if that didn't answer your question, sorry, he definitely did what I would consider to be a in-depth answer right there. We'll see what happens, was the end word on that. So here we go. Revelation News. How do you feel about Alex Jones, Ogre? My question, I picked this one, Brett, because most of these questions are for you. And remember what I said before, the size of the joint will be relative to how traumatizing the question is to your beloved Ogre. So here you go. Alex Jones did something really good when he was on Access Television in Austin. He went... exposed the Bohemian Grove. That was pretty cool. But as I see him now, something's going on. I personally would never be on his show because he'd just shout me down, because I got a lot of questions for the guy. Like, why did he go from right, left, it's all the same, to Donald Trump, the sun shines out of his very dark spot? I like Roger Stone, but why is he suddenly in bed with Roger Stone? Why did he fire Jakari Jackson? How I feel about Alex Jones is Same thing I said about Trump. He's a running dummy. He's one of two things. He's either sold out knowingly, or he wants to build this empire and feed his own ego so bad that he really just don't give a shit anymore. Either way, I watch Alex Jones so that I can hear him say stuff like, "I tell you what, people, the chemtrails are up there in the sky. You can watch some documentaries I did on it. Man, they're trying to kill us, folks," and blah, 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 blah. So when I want a little fear porn mongering, or I want to hear about gay frogs and bone broth, and I take super male vitality. That's why I'm still a large, chunky, fat ass, and I don't do shit, and I'm just getting so you can see the grease pouring. The guy, super male vitality, he uses cocaina. The juice, the nectar of the cocaina plant, I believe, is the super male vitality that he uses, fortified with a lot of scotch. Lord knows I could do that. I may not, well, probably would never. I doubt I never would be as big as him. But I used to do that. I used to just get here and fuel myself with booze and whiskey and beer and talk a bunch of shit. I'm sure it was entertaining for somebody. There you go. I will wrap it up this way. If you want to see a drunken, coke-fueled maniac talk you into giving him $1 million for his money bomb, coincidentally, right when he was sued in court and lost a $900 and some thousand lawsuit against his ex-wife. So, you know, in other words, if you want to give a guy $1 million so that he can go pay off a lawsuit, go give some money to Alex Jones. If you want to throw some money away on pseudoscience, go buy you some bone broth or whatever the new cure-all nonsense he's selling is. If you want some real news, tune into The Week That Was with the British. Oh, and I think I got another question here for you.
I spotted something. I've just gone on to sort of look at the chat.
Oh, yeah,
I normally never do. But I saw Review the Earth mention something about Murdoch or Fox News kind of drifting left and sucking up to the EU, I believe, was the inimitable way in which Review the Earth put it. There is absolutely no chance at all of that happening. Rupert Murdoch is absolutely against the European Union and has been one of the chief agents against the European Union in Britain for decades. His newspapers, specifically due to his owning them, are at times quite virulently anti-EU. So there is absolutely no chance of anything being repositioned in order to be more EU friendly, not as long as Rupert Murdoch walks the earth.
There you go.
So
And
I hope that answered the question.
yeah, that was great, Britt. I got another one for you here. Like I said, I warned them, Britisher. We still got some questions. Let me find it. It's from Me Too. And the question is, oh, wow, it was back here further than I thought. It was, I detect, where is that at? British. Oh, man, I detect a certain accent in you. I'm curious to know if the Britisher has Welsh. This is actually from V4 Vaughn. I'm curious to know if the Britisher has Welsh heritage. I detect in his Welsh accent. So, as I said, I was under the impression that
I'm quite happy to be mistaken for someone with Welsh heritage, because it's much closer to the mark than claiming that I am either of Korean, Pakistani, Indian, German, Eastern European, South African, or worse, American heritage that many other people have forwarded so far.
All right, and we won't waste a lot of time on that. But you answer one on your own.
I've been born in Britain, in England, but I grew up on the European continent.
And that's all y'all get. If you want more information than that, go to his channel and donate anonymously $50,000 British pounds sterling, 50,000 pounds, and he'll probably be happy to tell you his very address. Other than that, go, forget about it. So here we go, Brett. Here's a real question. Not that wasn't Vaughn, but we told you. No, we're not going to answer much about where we're from and whatnot, especially not the Britisher. Britisher, this comes from Binary Surfer. Britisher, your view on the next UK Prime Minister, and then in quotation marks, I'm betting Jacob R. M. I don't know what that means.
Jacob Rees-Mogg. I think that's what people think. I'm sorry, but the Jacob Rees-Mogg craze, I'm sorry, you're all completely wrong. I'm sorry. Jacob Rees-Mogg is not going to be Prime Minister. should the Conservatives be mad enough to make him Prime Minister, it would be a complete disaster. It doesn't so much matter what one might think of Jacob Rees-Mogg's politics. It is just the man himself. You cannot sell a person like that to the masses. Yes, he's quirky. Yes, he is amusing. Yes, he is very witty. Yes, he's eccentric. I quite like him. But if you present someone like that who really sounds like the epitome of someone who has been to Eton, if you try and sell something like that to the great British public, you have to understand that you're also trying to sell him to a great many people who are working class and who will listen to him and go, oh my God. Because, I mean, as most people will know who have heard Jacob Rees-Mogg speak, compared to him, I sound like a complete pleb. So in that regard, no, it just wouldn't work. I'm sorry, Jacob Rees-Mogg will not be the next Prime Minister.
Well, I'm sorry. They were
Yes, you found a way of interrupting my stream of thought there very successfully. Yes.
Sorry. And she is a lovely young lady. But I think there was some questions.
Why does trampolining suddenly spring to mind?
Oh, mercy. Like running on the beach at half speed, something like that. It is maybe with a bit of maybe a lollipop in one hand and an ice cream cone in the other. And yes, running my way.
Badminton also suddenly takes my interest.
Yeah. So there you go, Butter. This is a plug for Butter Cupcakes too. She does have a channel. I actually donate a little money to her just because I want her to make more than one video a dagnab month. But anyway, that said, a good answer to that question, Brett. Y'all got one more chance to ask the Britisher Eye any relevant questions. And Britisher, I'll tell you something, man. I'm honored to have you on here. It seems to me that so far, and I hope this continues for the foreseeable future, I really don't care the fiduciary outcome of this situation. I just like expressing our ideas and getting together and having a little chin wag with some people. And that's all fun. But that said, we do have a way. Yesterday, I want to say this delicately. I saw what it was like to me is I felt like I was the fireman on a locomotive, and I'm shoveling coal into the engine there to build up steam, and then I look and I see this horrible obstruction in the tracks a couple miles up, and the engineer notices it, and then we're now signaling back to the British or the brakeman. And you got to throw the brakes. So yesterday I did feel like, man, there was some brakes needed to be thrown on to some things that were going on. What's the point of that? Man, it's nice to have you here, Brett, where we can not only have fun, but we can have some structure to it. And it does seem to me, sir, that so far, man, I don't want to call down the Furies, but so far, whatever seemed to be thrown at us, we are able to handle it in one way or another. Would you like to have Logical Lion on a week from, like 14 days from this coming Wednesday, where it's you and I on a stream, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about, yeah, it took me that long to ask you this, and I want to ask, I don't even know if anybody heard the stream yesterday or watched it, let us know too. I got lost in that. I mean, I didn't understand the relevance, as I'm looking for one last question apiece, and then I'll put my 2 cents in on this, and I got to go eat my tea. I didn't see the relevance in the DNC being sued for, I don't know, getting double paid on something, whatever it may have been. It didn't seem like it was addressing any core problems that we have with our political system. I know you're not American, British, right? I'm not British. I still give you my 2 cents on stuff that I understand in your politics. I didn't see anything come from that. What difference will it make in, oh, I don't want to ask the next question. What difference will it make if they are suing each other? Do you even care? He's like, oh, Lord, I know what he's thinking right now. Oh, Lord, did you really even mention that stream? I'm going to get it later, folks. I'm going to get it.
Well, I think, to a large degree, we all ended up talking past each other. We seem to have a strong echo here, actually.
Oh, really? That quick, huh?
Yep. We seem to sort of end up talking past each other, and it took one or two very strange turns in the sort of latter half of the stream, which I think sort of people kind of realized who might have been listening that I kind of became somewhat befuddled as to where this was heading.
I was too, because I did not get it. I got all the points that everybody made. I just didn't get what difference it made if the DNC broke their own rules. And let's just say it could be, let's not even try to sit here without somebody to defend themselves. And let's just say that somebody can sue them or whatever. I just didn't see the relevance in the DNC breaking their own rules and how that would bring them down.
Well, yeah, I mean, when it comes to the DNC kind of destroying itself, for one, large parties as such don't just disappear, because it's almost as if there is an inherent need by societies to kind of maintain them. So all that basically would happen is that the current elite would kind of be wiped out, but it would immediately be replaced by another. Because it isn't as if the nigh on 50% of the population who voted for them will suddenly say, oh, well, they're now suing each other, so from now on I'm going to vote Republican. So
yeah, I'm sorry I did that too. I really am sorry I even brought it up in my heart right now.
Because there is such a massive demand, it's not just going to go away.
I should have thought that through a little more. I was just giving them a chance to ask a couple more questions. So guess what? I won't bring that up again. I got one. And if no one else has one for you, Britisher, I got one more for you. And then look, folks, I'm glad that there's some folks here watching, but we got to end it sometime. So we are going to put a cherry on top. My tea's getting cold. Mayweather or McGregor? Well, if McGregor faces Mayweather in a boxing ring, if he gets you always have a puncher's chance, is what it's called in the sweet science. You always have a puncher's chance, and McGregor can punch, man. He's got a knockout strike, but he has to make leather hit Floyd Mayweather Jr. somewhere in the sweet spot, and I don't foresee that happening. I would have liked to have seen them meet in in the octagon in a mixed martial arts stage, because then, of course. So that said, it's only because I like Conor McGregor. I would like to see him win. I hope he does get that boxer's punch in. I'm still a little sore over Mayweather winning the decision over the Pac-Man Pacquiao, who is at this moment my all-time pound-for-pound favorite boxer that has ever lived, Manny Pacquiao. And the Filipino Flash, Nonito Donaire, is a close second. He also, I mean, just amazing fellas that strike off angles. You'll see him counter punch in a way where they're dodging a punch and striking off such silly angles. And both those boys are left-handed nightmares. So that's my way of saying Conor McGregor is going to get he's going to lose to a decision. He's got the stamina. I do not believe that Floyd Mayweather could knock Conor McGregor out. He would have to stand there with his hands behind his back and his chin way out. And then I'm still questioning if he would have the power to knock Conor out. That is a tough dude. But he's going to get on his bicycle. He's going to avoid him, and he's going to lose. So I don't even know if there's a question for you, Britt. If not, I'm going to ask you one. And how do you feel about today? Did it suck? What happened today, the whole day, not just the show?
Well, I think when it comes particularly to this show, I think it worked rather well. We kind of got on our high horses and held our own little monologues. And I think we sort of did reasonably well compared to sort of where we usually are, without wanting to kind of pat us on the back too much.
Yeah, no, that's what I was looking for anyway. It was a little bit of self-aggrandizement. We could pull that to – no, I saw him get I want to say Maxine Waters. Not Maxine Waters. Oh, Nancy Pelosi. And they were saying, well, don't you think it's time? You've been in here a long time. Well, you know what? And she was like, well, what do you want me to do? Sing my praises? And without a pause. She was like, I'm a master legislator. And just went on to all these things. So, yeah, there's something to be said for not doing that. Because as I watched her do that, Brett, I was a little downhearted.
So she is, in that case, I mean, America must be one of the best governed nations on the planet. Because you've got Nancy Pelosi, who, as you just heard, has just told the nation what for a master legislator she is. But at the same time, you have also got a president who is so good with the military. He's tremendous with the military. He's better than the military than most of the generals, if I recall correctly, according to his own statement. So when you hear these things, according to their own judgments, American politicians seem to be all that outstanding, and I'm assuming that if it counts for those two, it counts for the rest of them. That, I mean, you must be spoiled for choice over there.
Yeah, you'd think so by that statement she made, but that's not the case. As so many times,
what I was trying to kind of draw your attention to, it was not just a statement she made. There seems to also be someone else who also thinks that he's quite good at things.
So I'm going to let you put the cherry on top. I waited for a cogent question from our chat, and apparently they're just going to chat amongst themselves. And, oh, one last thing. Nope, $1 billion radio content. Nah, it's just more jokes and whatnot. Thought there might have been something for you, Bersher. So to put a cherry on top of this whole thing, I'm not afraid of the left or the right, of any kind of dogma that is happening, because I have my own mind. I'm in a good position here. So far, I mean, things could happen. But as it stands right now, pretty sure in the end, if Hillary Clinton would have been elected president, wouldn't have affected me too much. Probably not at all. That President Bush is elected president, I'm going to say it hadn't really affected me at all. I could go into things I was telling you the other day, and you could counter him about he's got jobs or it's somebody else or whatever. But whatever he's done or hasn't done, nothing has changed here, mate. I still get my electric bill every month. I still get all of that stuff still comes in. So I would like you to take as long as you want to please tell the people out here, because I believe a lot of them are a lot like you and I, and we're a lot closer in ideology than anybody probably knows. Why is it not a good idea for different factions to now say, because we don't have representation physically, you know, the muscle, because we're not, whatever, we're going to now form our own paramilitary branch, and we're going to go out here and counter protest, demonstrate, be there, show up, hang out, be around with this muscle. Because what does a muscle want to do? It wants to flex. Why would that be a bad thing? Shouldn't they want to defend themselves, i.e. the Proud Boys and Kyle the Base Stick Man? Shouldn't they want to form the alt Knights? Shouldn't they want to defend themselves and have this branch? If not, why is it a bad thing? I know you can tell us, man.
Well, I mean, first off, let me just start with one point, and that is just to address what you just said before. If Hillary Clinton were to have become president, it would have affected you. It would have directly affected you. It would, in fact, have affected this very thing we're doing here. Because already now, more than likely, you would be prevented from saying certain things on this very stream and in your videos on your channel that basically would kind of, you know, bear out the fact that there is a direct correlation to her becoming president and your being silenced. Or at least, how should we say, advised in a friendly manner not to say the right thing, not to say the wrong thing or else. But aside that, when it comes to, you know, your main question, why shouldn't people be doing that? It's quite simple, because the people who basically are the muscle, the people who go there with the thought of, I will help protect our side, they will more than likely go there with the complete conviction that they are effectively protecting society. And my advice to them is, you're not protecting society. You are, in fact, helping to dismantle it. Whereas you think you are acting as a counterbalance to the violent side. So basically, you are stopping the building that is your society being eroded from one side. What you are in fact doing is additionally eroding it from the other side at the same time. You are weakening it even faster than if you were to do nothing. Because violence only begets violence. The more muscle you send this time round, the more muscle they will send next time round. And in that regard, you end up in a cycle of violence, and there is no possible good outcome from that. None whatsoever. It is entirely destructive. It may well be done for the best of motives. But then you have to understand that that is exactly the same thought process which is agitating the people on the other side. They too are only there to do the right thing. But you are absolutely convinced that they're in the wrong. You just don't seem to have the presence of mind to basically reflect on your own actions. And you think that because you are reacting to the other force, that because they started it, that your contribution is therefore either irrelevant or be merely a mitigating force. But as I say, it is actually a cumulative force. You're making matters much, much worse. So anyway, yeah, I would leave it there.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I just can't, and I didn't want to put my 2 cents in on that. I've actually got a little bit something else to say. And this is the end for me, Britt. I sure appreciate you being here, and Wolf Shot. Probably do this more in the future, where on the day show even we'll try to keep it back. People in the chat, you know, you can always throw your 2 cents in. We're not abridging anybody's speech. I'm sure we will get folk in here that will think much differently than myself, and will think much differently than the Britisher. And we'll always give whoever's in here deference. And that's why we've decided to cut it back, the British or not. Because if we get 5, 6 people in here, it's not good to anyone. It's actually abridging everyone's speech. It's not letting anyone get a full idea out. And that's more or less the idea here. You know, we want to have this place where we come and have our meme safe space. Did you like that today, British? I was like, this is my meme safe space. I don't know if you caught that. And yeah, if you can't throw a joke in there in a discussion, well, whoever you're discussing things with, they're too serious about life. So here we go, folks. Look, in the end, I'm always going to go back to this. If we don't take time to think about our own selves, look, my favorite philosopher said, do unto others as you've had do unto you. No greater love has no man than he'd lay his life down for another. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Whoever would be first will be last. Whoever will be last will be first. All these things about giving your coat and all this. And I'm not saying to not do for someone else or not to help your fellow man, but to be selfish. That's my caveat. So get on the ship. Here we go. If you don't mind yourself, what do I mean by mind yourself? If you don't consider what is the thing that I do want done to me, don't consider your ideas as good or righteous or right or correct or fulfilling or the best or the only one that counts. Don't do that. I can't do that. Don't do that. Consider your ideas as your ideas. And if you're human like I am, you want others to hear them, to know what they are, to imbibe them, to consider what you think, what your ideas are. But would you want them abridged? Even if someone disagreed and gave you good reasons why they don't think you're correct, would you still want to express what you feel? I would. I know I'm wrong when I think I'm right. That's part of being human. I don't know it because I've accepted that I'm wrong in any situation, whatever that may be. I know it because I observe the human condition, and I have witnessed folks assuming they not only have the moral high ground, but the intellectual, the spiritual, all the high ground belongs to them, and they were absolutely incorrect. I know I've got to do the same thing. But in the end, I want to believe what I want to believe as long as it doesn't hurt someone else, notwithstanding those things. I don't have any solutions at this point, but I'm troubled right now in knowing that a certain group of people that I believe have a very good mission, they have a very good idea, are using tactics and are starting to ramp up rhetoric and implement ideas that are going to get people hurt. Because as it's been said before today, without me going on forever, if you draw battle lines long enough, there's gonna be a battle. What's the sense in having an army if you don't use it? We need to regulate that responsibility to the appropriate authorities. And if they're not willing to do it, we need to write our letters. We need to take signs there and say, hey, we would like you to protect our free speech, our right to be. We don't want to have paramilitary organizations representing us. The minute we do that, folks, without naming any names, if someone on the right wing has a paramilitary group that's there to protect them, brothers and sisters, whether you like me for saying it or not, they're no different than Antifa. So that said, without getting myself in any more trouble, be good to your friends, be good to your family members, be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friends, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because constant viewers, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, your cause, and all the things you think are virtuous will depart from you. Sydney Rough Diamond, man, that's all I got to say. Hope to see you soon, baby.